I'll be glad. Can everybody rise and put their hand over their heart, please, and join me? Ready, begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Certainly. Chairman Morrissey.
Here.
Vice Chair Malik.
Here.
Commissioner Rosales.
Present.
Commissioner Balma.
Present.
Commissioner Anthony.
Present.
Commissioner Ogden.
Present.
And Commissioner Dodds indicated he would not be able to attend tonight, so let the record show we do have a quorum.
Do we have any pending matters not on the agenda tonight?
Chair Morrissey, we have 15 speakers on non-agenda item.
Not on the agenda.
Correct.
Okay,
Would you like me to carry on here?
let's, pardon me?
Would you like me to move along?
Please, let's-
Okay.
Let's cue them up.
All right. If you see your names up on the screen, you'll come down to the lectern. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, so please go in the order you see up on the screen. First to speak will be Dee, second will be Dave, and so on. And feel free to pre-stage at the lectern. If someone's already speaking, you can pre-stage when it's your turn. So please come forward, Dee.
Did we approve the minutes yet? I think we did that. You forgot.
And actually, we can have Dave pre-stage if you'd like.
Good evening, commissioners and city staff. I apologize for my being tardy to the podium. I was not expecting to be called first. So thank you for your time, efforts, energy. Everything you do for our community is so appreciated. The Eddie Jones Warehouse is the proposal that will be coming before you for your vote at your next meeting. We anticipate this room will be filled with people who share in our opposition. Many of them will come forward to express their concerns. With that in mind, several of us have come here tonight from our community in order to take advantage of this opportunity before that meeting, where you will be bombarded with, hopefully, many more valid reasons for denial and other concerns. But you will certainly also hear genuine frustration driven by emotion and even fear. Emotions will run high. Our purpose tonight is to provide some very specific specific information and insight to support our adamant opposition to this development. We hope to plant some seeds of information that you might consider when it comes time for you to vote on this project. Thank you for hearing us out. We promise to make it brief. And again, we're trying to get ahead of the chaos that will be in this chamber in 2 weeks' time. We, the Blue Crew, if you look around, that is our nickname. You will see that we are all clad in blue. Look forward to seeing you again on February 10th. Again, thank you for your dedication to our community and for what you do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. To continue with the Eddie Jones project, I and many of those present here today would rather have something entirely different built, but you might feel that's an impractical option. Yellow already? Man. Sorry. This project will require 2 conditional use permits. One is required for exceeding the 50,000 square foot structures, the other for exceeding the number of large trucks. Both of these requests exceed the current code allowances. I would like you to hold the developer to those allowances. I remind you the CUP approvals are at your discretion. Just because the planning department recommends it does not mean you have to approve it. Should this commission approve the project, I would like to see a set of CC&Rs established that would put heavy restrictions and conditions to counter the negative impacts on our community. Restrict the hours of operations, including the impact, reducing the impact on light, noise, vibrations during the hours of darkness. Delineate delivery truck routes, restricting trucks utilizing the Benet Road.
Recording in progress.
Have the owner and the tenants file a facility management plan that shall be reviewed by the public prior to operations and be renegotiated in a transparent public fashion. Included in that management plan shall be the procedures that allow, in case of a fire or other emergency situations where emergency vehicles have unfettered access, and to allow for the speedy evacuation of all the residents north of the project. Should any future modifications to the CUP be considered, that all the airport community, including the Prince of Peace Abbey, formally be notified via registered correspondence prior to the commencement of that request to the city. This project is clearly not in keeping with the city's character, quality, or beach town atmosphere. This project is too big and generates way too many negative impacts that will have a forever adverse effect on our community. The future of our community's health, welfare, quality, and life values rest with you. Our quality of life includes the ability to easily move about the community. This project will seriously impact times for us to travel, especially if you use the 76 highway. Less time with family or time to enjoy our town and the recreational amenities. Our air quality is already among the worst within North County and will only get worse. Thank you, and think of our community for its future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Elise Buddy. I'm a resident of Oceanside, and I'm very passionate about this Eddie Jones project. Very opposed to it. I moved to Oceanside in 1988, prior to the 76 corridor even existing. Mission Avenue was the only way to get from Interstate 5 to the 15. And as Oceanside developed, this became gridlock. 76 came in and traffic eased. But of course, this was before we had a Home Depot, before we had a Lowe's, before we had the airport community, the River Ranch development, numerous housing developments. We outgrew the 76 exponentially. And here we are today, 30 years later, still developing, but no change to the infrastructure. If any of you ever traveled the 76 between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning, and in the afternoon westbound from 2 to 6, it's gridlock. And here we're proposing this huge distribution center with 114 truck bays, putting these semi-tractor trailers on the corridor. Nobody's going to be able to travel. And as climate crisis pursues, 2 years ago, the 78 was shut down from flooding. We saw what happened in LA. People will not get out in the event of a catastrophic event. I beg of you to please think of the health, the welfare, and safety of Oceanside residents. The 76 corridor cannot handle this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead and start. Hi,
Carol.
my name is Dr. Carol McConnell. I'm here to talk to you about the Eddie Jones project as well. My area of focus is on air pollution. But before I go into that, I'd actually like to take a minute, since I'm assuming that many of you may be a little bit newer to this project than we have been studying it. It actually is being developed 10% ownership by a local developer here in Oceanside, or excuse me, Encinitas. 90% is coming from a group called the Carlyle Group, a multinational private equity, alternative asset management, and financial services company in Washington, D.C. The parcel of land that is adjacent to the airport is currently zoned for light industry. It's been zoned for light industry for decades, and we have absolutely no problem whatsoever with that zoning. What has evolved around that parcel over those decades, however, are lots of recreational activities. The San Luis Rey River Trail, very popular with families and surfers pedaling to the beach on a daily basis, is immediately adjacent to this parcel of land that will be designated for truck trailers. Also, the Prince Memorial Skate Park, used by children and teenagers, again on a daily basis, is downwind by only several hundred yards from this parcel of land, again, proposed for 114 truck trailers. The Go Jump Parachute Adventure Company that draws tourists to the town of Oceanside from all over Southern California is going to be overhead of all these idling vehicles, 114 truck trailers. And let's not forget Ocean Camp, which is scheduled to go in just a little bit further down this. You guys know far more about Ocean Camp than I do. Because of all these outdoor activities, the potential on young lungs of children and teenagers in their prime developmental years, I believe that air pollution should be our #1 focus on this project. If we as a community get this variable wrong, we can have a domino effect not only on Oceanside's tourism, which I know is a strategic goal of the city, but also on the health of children of tomorrow. Our goal is to ask you to please deny the request of the developer Pacifica, again local to Encinitas, the Carlyle Group of Washington, D.C., and ask that they restate their development plan to adhere to the existing zoning regulations of light industry as they are currently, without a conditional use permit or without a variance that allows them with so many truck trailers. Currently, light industry would allow them 6 truck terminals, which would be appropriate because that's what was there before. That's what's been there for over 60 years. Again, it is in our hands to shepherd the health of children into the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm opposed to the Eddie Jones warehouse project for many of the reasons you've heard already and you'll continue to hear from other speakers. As residents of the
Sir,
city...
could you state your name?
I'm sorry, Edwin Jenkins. As residents of the City of Oceanside, we view you, our Planning Commission, as the gatekeepers of the vision for Oceanside's future. Just because a proposed development has checked all the required boxes with the Planning Department does not mean that the proposed development should get summarily approved. The first significant question that must be asked and answered is if a particular proposed development serves the best interest of the City of Oceanside and its residents. The proposed Eddie Jones warehouse project fails on so many levels to fulfill this requirement. The second significant question that must be asked and answered is if the proposed project is consistent with and enhances the vision for Oceanside's future. Again, the proposed Eddie Jones warehouse project fails on so many levels to fulfill this requirement. Our understanding is that the vision for Oceanside's future is to have Oceanside become a desired vacation destination and to promote and embrace tourism as an economic engine for our city. In our airport area alone, as the previous speaker mentioned, we already have recreational skate park and the Go Jump skydiving opportunity, and Ocean Camp is under construction as we speak here tonight. These tourism and recreational activities will be adversely affected by the proposed Eddie Jones warehouse project due to the increase in heavy traffic, truck traffic, constant noise, and significant air pollution. The developer's EIR puts forth dubious conclusions that the negative effects of their project are less than significant. This is ludicrous. Even the most casual observer can see that the negative effects of this proposed project are quite significant, pervasive, and severe. If a truly honest EIR were written, it would necessarily arrive at the obvious conclusion that this project should not be built as currently proposed. Because of the many significant adverse effects the project would impose on our city and both the nearby residential and commercial community. Don't be misled by the developer's comments about so-called positive economics this project will produce and how many jobs will be provided. Such statements are self-serving, but more importantly, are truly just red herrings. Any future development on this site will produce comparable economic value and job. Regarding jobs, the question is what...
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
Good evening. First of all, thank you for your service to our community. I appreciate you guys. I want to talk to you about Eddie Jones project as well. However, I kind of want to spin it a little bit differently. When people talk about the great city of Oceanside, which this is, they talk about things like South O and what the property values are worth and what the quality of life is like. When they talk about the city of Oceanside west of the 5 freeway, the same thing pops up, the quality of life, what the values are worth, and how great it is. However, when you shift over to neighborhoods like the Pozole, the Capistrano neighborhood, and the Valley, well, things start to change a little bit. We talk about building large industrial warehouses that are gonna pollute our neighborhood with sound, exhaust, and a variety of other things that you're gonna hear about consistently. We're already building an ocean camp project, which brings value and beauty to our already great city, and we need more things like that. Do we want to be known as the people who bring this industrial building to an already struggling area, or do we want to be famous for putting this place on the map like we're already doing in other areas? I would strongly hope that you would protest and deny this cup in this Eddie Jones project and look for something that benefits all of us a little bit better, something that helps with our families and our children and those to come for many generations. I appreciate your time and thank you.
Sir, did you mention your name?
John Bucalo, 471
Thanks,
Tishmal Court. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alan Waite. Commissioners, thank you for having me. I'm a 16-year resident of Oceanside and now retired. We moved here primarily for a main reason, and that was we're avid bicyclists. San Luis Bicycle Trail caught our attention, and after looking over 100 homes, we said this is the neighborhood we want to live in. Over the past couple of years, and during one of our public Zoom presentations for the Eddie Jones project, a statement was made by the developer, RPG, indicating their complete misunderstanding of our airport community's fire safety concern. RPG stated, in the event of an external fire, building occupants would not evacuate, but instead would shelter in place. RPG's response clearly missed our community's primary concern, which is egress of the adjacent communities where I live and ingress of fire and safety personnel, and not for, RPG building occupants, who apparently, according to the developer, would be inherently safe due to the building's concrete construction. Question mark. Recent devastating fires in Los Angeles, as well as our region's 2014 Lilac fire, highlight our community's primary concern for EJP's construction and existence in Oceanside. And yet another fire was much closer to my home in the California Breezes neighborhood, just a few blocks north of the Eddie Jones project. This fire happened 2.5 years ago. Bring it back up. We'll throw it away. So here it is. I'm walking out my front door to go get the mail, and I looked out and went, oh my God. I'll speed it up a little bit here. There was a raging inferno that I rode my bike up to look at this and said, this isn't going to go anywhere. The wind shifted, and 10 minutes later, this is what I saw up in the neighborhood. Sent chills down my spine. It got worse. Another 10 minutes later, and it went away. All right.
Wow.
Went back to my house. This is literally on the hillside above my house. And I said, this is not good. And it even got worse. there were, over a period of an hour and a half, many airdrops. But the point here is neighbors across the street were forced to walk home, having been dropped off at Alex Skate Park. Thank you for your time.
My name is Ann Marshall, and I've lived in Oceanside for 24 years. And I'm against the Eddie Jones project. There are only two small roads to enter and exit the airport community, Fusat and Bennett, and they're both off the 76. And this community has well over 3,600 residents. An emergency response team would need to access the community via only these two roads, and each road only has 2 lanes that cross a bridge over the San Luis River. My concern is if the road is blocked due to traffic congestion or an accident, how will they be able to get through? Imagine a residence requiring the services of a paramedic and was called to the top of, Shadow Tree Drive in order to get to the resident in distress and in a timely manner, and this could be very difficult and maybe even fatal. So as he said, in June of 22, there was a brush fire. It was called the Wall of Fire, and it grew to 75 acres. It prompted evacuations. The traffic congestion was a concern. This project, the Eddie Jones project, plans to hire 500 employees on top of all the semi-trucks. So imagine 3,600 residents needing to evacuate along with 500 employees and all the trucks exiting on a 2-lane road. So this is a concern. I've seen trucks lost in the community. It just takes one missed turn. A common cause of truck drivers getting lost is driver fatigue, or maybe they're using their phones while they're driving. A couple of years ago in the community, a driver fatally hit a woman on a sidewalk. So accidents do happen. And a semi-truck in the community is just an accident waiting to happen. So this is a quiet, family-friendly neighborhood. People walk with their dogs and their babies, and children ride their bikes to the beach. Trucks are vital to our community, but unfortunately, they present a collision risk because of their large size. And I think my time is going to be up. But please allow the emergency response team
Thank you.
to access the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gene O'Neill. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to talk about something very important, the Eddie Jones Warehouse Manufacturing and Distribution Facility. Now, I've seen a lot of projects, some good, some not so good. But let me tell you, folks, this one is a disaster, an absolute disaster for the airport community. We're talking about 1,200 homes, nearly 4,800 great Americans who will be going to be hammered by this. Constant truck traffic, deafening noise, toxic pollution, and traffic congestion that will cripple our road. It is unacceptable. For over 2 years, this community has been fighting. They've gathered over 5,000 signatures. Thousands have shown their support, but the city, we don't know if you will stand with the people or against them. Oceanside Planning Department, the people are watching. You have a choice: protect the health, safety, and quality of life of your citizens, or cave to a project that will ruin this community. Do the right thing. Reject this disaster. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Appreciate your work. As others have said it, we appreciate your hard effort, your expertise in these projects. My name is Michael Tenover. I'm at 873 Waller Drive. I'm talking tonight about the noise analysis I've done on the project. I did the project analysis early on in June, and I'm going to show an update today with the new design. So as you know, we've gone from a warehouse, which is basically a monolithic structure, to now separate buildings. And I've been able to do the calculations. Actually, calculating noises inside chambers and tunnels is a very difficult calculation, but I did get through it. So here's a perspective on what we're looking at. This photo is taken from the Wanish View Wildlife Preserve. And so you see the relative structures here. We have the warehouse location, and then the Wanish View homes, and then the river basin. When I first did these calculations in June, there's red bars there, which were big red flags. The original design had a lot of high-level areas of noise. The river, the homes, and also even the wildlife preserve had very high levels of noise. When I do the calculation now, I show now the blue bars, which you see we've made a significant reduction in noise in the project. The levels at the wildlife preserve and also the Wanish View homes are quite a bit improved. The river number isn't as good because as they've turned the building, another side of the river has been exposed to where the noise is. So it's the river, but a different part of the river has now the noise level. However, we can do a lot better. And there's a number of options we could talk about to further reduce the noise. I think the noise level at both the homes and also the river is still too high. One option is to, instead of a north-south, go to an east-west orientation of the buildings. If you do that, that's the gray bars in the chart there. And you see, if we do this, number one, the Wanish View homes have now a very quiet neighbor. We all want to be good neighbors. A good neighbor is quiet, so this would be great for the homes. Also, the Wanish View Wildlife Preserve also now sees a low level of noise from the warehouse. The river, again, I told you the river, because the river goes around the plant, so the river still has a pretty high level. But as you see, at least we're now below the Caltrans guidance for wildlife areas. Right? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Wendy Bravo Dolan. I'm an oblate at the Prince of Peace Abbey, Order of St. Benedict. We are extensions of the monastery insofar as our station in life allows. And I've written this letter to you. I hope I can get through it in time. Dear members of the City of Oceanside Planning Commission, I would like to state the following objections to the FEIR of the Eddie Jones Warehouse Manufacturing and Distribution Facility Project. 1, inadequate noise level testing for the 4th version plan proposed. No significant noise reduction for the plan has been shown to reduce noise disturbances, even with the proposal to reconfigure the building placements to surround noise sources. Please show significant measurements. 2, inadequate testing for noise levels in both the DEIR and FEIR. Testing is absent appropriate measurements and controls to show combinations of sources at intervals throughout the entire workday during routine operations, from low use to peak operations over the course of a year, as well as effects shown from cumulative sound measurements taken from appropriate distances. The absence of noise testing includes Prince of Peace Abbey Church grounds open to the public from the foothills of the property to the plateau and surrounds. Prince of Peace Abbey offers visitors opportunities for quiet enjoyment and peaceful reflection. The exclusion of mention of Prince of Peace Abbey in both DEIR and FEIR with respect to all CEQA stipulations. The Prince of Peace listing under the City of Oceanside's general plan in aesthetics for its scenic vista and ranking with other locations as meeting aesthetic standards is omitted. Visual resources in the City of Oceanside are listed as scenic vistas viewable for miles around. The Prince of Peace Abbey also qualifies as a viewpoint onto the scenic watershed of the San Luis Rey River and surrounding coastal plateaus and valleys visible to Camp Pendleton. Its environments are also enjoyed as a scenic resource listed in the Oceanside General Plan, as Camp Pendleton is. How has Eddie Jones' project shown it will not disturb the life, way, and peace of both human and wildlife within hearing and sight of its operation? Eddie Jones project is not shown that airport community households want us to preserve and its local residents, as well as worshipers and visitors and the monastic community, all within earshot of the proposed complex, will not be exposed to disturbing sounds, as well as multi-species so exposed by an excess of decibels. How does Eddie Jones project noise testing show how noise will expand upward and outward from the site? How is Eddie Jones project FEIR shown protection of infant ears from noise disturbance, families working from home, bird songs from mating disturbances, and vulnerability to predators, sleeping families, worshipers who come to pray in quiet, who join visitors from all over the world to enjoy the peace of the Prince of Peace Abbey. Lastly, how can any projections proposited by Eddie Jones be considered as relevant, being that a tenant is not yet established? Without tenant, how can the project idea be shown to have been properly tested? How can fire protection be assured, evacuation measures, et cetera? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Neil Hancock. I live in the area where Eddie Jones is going to be built. I want to talk to you about this being in the wrong place. We've got an industrial center, and ultimately Amazon was rejected going in there. This is way bigger than what Amazon was set up to be. It's in the wrong place. And to give you another example of why it's in the wrong place, let's say the words Brother Beano's. Brother Beano's is across the street. It's a nightmare to the city. Why do we have to have another Brother Beano's type of a establishment in our backyard, in our neighborhood, in a residential neighborhood? You can issue your CUPs, but there's really no enforcement to the CUPs. You can saber rattle all you want and say, oh, it's in the wrong area, or we're going to make a move, or we're going to have this or that or whatever. There's really no enforcement arm to any of that. It's just saber rattling. So here we go, 114 trucks or bays that no matter what they end up saying, whether they're going to do it with 54 or they're going to do it with 114. The EIR is for 114. This is a mistake. It's in the wrong area. It needs to be relocated. We also need some dedicated turn lanes if you're thinking about doing this, similar to what we have on Fusat, to get those trucks out of here. How many big rigs are going to be on site? Let's stay within what our rules are. We don't have to make exceptions for this. You wouldn't want it in your backyard. Why do we have to have it in ours? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Colonel Kimberly Johnson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in opposition of the Eddie Jones project. I'd like to address the city's vision and goals. One facet of the economic development plan is to market Oceanside as a tourism destination. The economic development plan is one objective of the city's general plan, and the general plan's purpose is to establish a long-range vision for the community and to plan for important community issues such as new growth, housing needs, public services, and environmental protection. Tourism is mentioned on several different places within the City of Oceanside's websites, links, and plans. While the proposed Eddie Jones project may fulfill the economic goal of new jobs and revenue for the city, it does not fulfill the other goals of tourism, environment protection, and it certainly does not improve the lives of the Oceanside residents in the nearby neighborhoods, nor arguably anyone who traverses the 76-5 corridor. While economic development, which includes businesses that bring in jobs and revenue, it also includes businesses that are aligned with the vision of Oceanside, tourism and a place for residents to enjoy. I moved to Carlsbad in 1986 as a child. My parents moved to Oceanside in 1995, and I became a homeowner in Oceanside in 2011. Over the decades, I've watched Oceanside transform into a premier destination to live in and as a tourist destination. As a tourist destination, most recently we've seen Condé Nast not only feature an article in April 2022 to All Things Wonderful in Oceanside, the 2023 Annual Reader's Choice Awards noted the Mission Pacific Hotel as a top hotel in San Diego, a luxury hotel that even brought a woman who knows hotels, Kathy Hilton, to to stay and highlight this in Real Housewives of Beverly Hills last year. Again, bringing more positive attention to our wonderful city. The proposed Eddie Jones warehouse does not align with this vision. In fact, it is in opposition to the majority of the city's vision. It does not benefit the residents for a place to enjoy. In fact, it directly negatively affects the residents of as the others have already mentioned, air pollution, noise pollution, increased traffic congestion. I urge you to deny the proposed Eddie Jones project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Gretchen Gary. I'm a homeowner and a resident of the Wanasview residential community that sits directly across the San Luis Rey River from the Eddie Jones project. My home sits at the end of the Tishmal cul-de-sac, only 0.15 miles from the property that's less than 800 feet. My home is one of the closest homes to the Eddie Jones land with 180-degree views of the entire project from my master bedroom, bathroom, balcony, and home office downstairs. The decision you make on this project will have a profound impact on my daily life, not only because I live there, but I also work from home. I am there all day, every day, and with such close proximity, I can hear and see everything. I am asking the Planning Commission to reject this project for the health of myself, my family, and the entire surrounding community. I knew this land near the airport was zoned as light commercial when I purchased, and I moved to this home when the previous buildings were in operation. I would have never expected when I purchased this home that there would be a proposal for a mega industrial facility proposed on this land. This facility that is currently proposed is something you find on the open area of the Inland Empire or in surrounding industrial areas around international airports like the Denver airport. I would argue that since the city has approved residential development of several thousand homes off Bennett Road, this is no longer an industrial area as it once was back in the 1960s when the Eddie Jones land was first zoned as light industrial. The presence of the Prince Skate Park further established this area of more of a family-oriented recreational space than an industrial park now. And there are many more than my children who are at risk of the impacts from the expected air pollution of 57-plus semi-trucks within several hundred feet. Risks that include childhood asthma, heart disease, cognitive decline, and risk of stroke, according to a report from the Environmental Defense Fund published in 2023. Hundreds of children gather at the Prince Skate Park every day and engage in strenuous outdoor recreational activities. Both ozone and fine particulate matter formed in the chemicals in diesel exhaust are known to be harmful to human health, as according to EPA, and would have concentrated levels in the immediate area where these children are present day and night. Please don't approve a project that would bring dangerous levels of these chemicals to an area I live only 800 feet away from. Lastly, my concerns about noise pollution and engines backup alarms of 57 semi-trucks, assisting forklifts, and machinery possibly operating 24 hours a day so close to my bedroom literally keeps me up at night already. Per the American Health Association, chronic noise, even at low levels, can cause annoyance, sleep disruption, and stress that can contribute to cardiovascular disease, metabolic disturbances, exacerbation of psychological disorders, and premature mortality. Noise interferes with cognition and learning, contributes to behavioral problems, and reduces achievement and productivity. I can hear backup alarms of the trucks at the Stone Quarry off of 76 that start at 5 a.m. sometimes. The valley of the San Luis River amplifies noise in the quiet hours between sunrise and sunset, which would be particular productive time for a 24-hour manufacturing facility.
Thank you, Gretchen. Jimmy.
Chair, Commissioners, Jimmy Knott, 127 Cherry Lane. Continuing in the public education about the Eddie Jones project. Number one, no tenant. We don't know what's going to be built there in the sense of who's going to occupy it, what they're going to be doing there, what's going to be, is it going to be manufacturing included? Is it just going to be transfer facility? And then what type of transfer facility? Is it the right use for that location? Is it the right plan? Are they taking and trying to develop a plan for something that shouldn't be for that tenant? Is it going to have to be retrofitted? And all the planning that is being done and will be proposed to you is going to have to be tossed out the window? And the new plan will have to be resubmitted? This is a lot of things that you will have to consider. Another thing is they promise a lot of benefits and jobs for Oceanside. Think about this. In the European models for transport and transferring and loading and transfer facilities, AI and modern robotics, advanced automated robotics, are replacing humans. This will do away with those jobs for Oceanside homeowners, for Oceanside workers. It'll be outsourced to robots, but that's not being considered. This is something that is on the schedule. And last city's council meeting, they addressed fire safety. It was not adequately addressed for this location. Neither was the sighting of vehicles that are waiting to go into the site. There's going to have to be off-site locations with running vehicles to be called into the site. And where is that location going to be? That has not been explained. There are so many questions, even for, like, say, the new vehicles with lithium batteries and storage and their safety, especially with fire safety. May I bring up the Trump? Okay, I won't bring up the Trump thing up in Las Vegas, but we know what happened there. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Morrissey, that concludes our off-agenda speakers.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, do we want to vote on, can I get a motion to vote on last meeting? To approve the minutes of the meeting?
I'll make a motion. Approval.
Second?
I'll second.
Please vote.
Let the record show that the motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. I see nothing on the consent calendar nor transportation items. So we'll go into the public hearing. And our first item is item 4. Thank you. The consideration of a regular coastal permit for the restoration of approximately 4 acres of wetland habitat adjacent to Buena Vista Lagoon, Audubon Buena Vista Wetland Reserve Coastal Habitat Restoration and Resiliency Project, and the applicant is Buena Vista Audubon Society. Could I get disclosure starting on my left here? Commissioner Anthony?
Staff report also went by the site.
Commissioner Ogden?
A staff report and also visual inspection of the area provided.
Staff report driven by many times, and I was on the planning commission when a different issue, but similar to this location came to us in, I think, 2016.
Yeah, I read the staff report. It went by the site.
I read the staff report, very familiar with the site.
Staff report, very familiar with the site. I was also on the commission when we actually looked at the Boardwalk Hotel. I think that's what that was, which was very, there's another project that got turned down, but this owner, I guess, decided to work with the Audubon Society and sell it to them, which is kind of a cool thing, so it's nice.
With that, Shannon?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Morrissey, Planning Commissioners. Shannon Vitale, Senior Planner in the Development Services Department. I'm here this evening to discuss agenda item number 4, a habitat restoration project for the Buena Vista Audubon Society. In 2016, as an effort to protect the land from future development, the Buena Vista Audubon Society purchased the Wetlands Reserve property. The Wetlands Reserve property is home to many endangered bird species and provides a natural buffer between urban development and the Buena Vista Lagoon. In 2020, the San Diego Association of Governments approved a project for the Buena Vista Lagoon Enhancement Project. This project would restore 220 acres of the lagoon to a modified saltwater estuary. Implementation of this project would result in a loss of freshwater wetlands to the Wetlands Reserve property. Recognizing the importance of the freshwater habitat, the Buena Vista Audubon Society pursued grant funding for the restoration and enhancement of the freshwater habitat located on the Wetlands Reserve. And in 2022, they received funding to pursue the project before you this evening. In 2024, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife provided a letter of support for the project. For your reference, that letter was included as attachment 4 to the staff report. The project site is approximately 4 acres and has 3 landowners: the Buena Vista Audubon Society, the City of Oceanside, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. A portion of the total project site is located in the city of Carlsbad and is not included as part of this application. The project is located in the coastal zone and surrounded by the Buena Vista Lagoon to the south, residential development to the north, North County Transit District rail line to the west, and Coast Highway to the east. This slide provides an overview of the site. Since this project is located in the coastal zone, the project requires a regular coastal permit to be reviewed by the Planning Commission. The coastal permit is for the restoration of existing habitat areas, including, among others, coastal sage scrub and freshwater marsh areas. Full details of the habitat restoration was provided in the Habitat Restoration Plan appended to the staff report. The project also includes the creation of a formal pedestrian nature trail, approximately 0.26 acres, that would replace the informal trail that currently traverses the project site. The alignment of the nature trail is shown in gray on the slide. Educational signage, similar to what is currently in place at the Buena Vista Audubon Nature Center, would be installed along the trail to provide information on the various habitats and native species of the lagoon. As described in the staff report, staff reviewed the project for compliance with the general plan, local coastal program, and the zoning ordinance. The project is consistent with the goals and policies of the general plan because the project would implement goals included in the community enhancement, open space, public recreational facilities, natural resource management, and vegetation and wildlife habitat sections of the general plan. The project is consistent with the local coastal program because it would implement coastal policies related to the Buena Vista Lagoon, specifically those pertaining to passive recreation use, protection and restoration of sensitive habitat, and installation of educational signs. Since a portion of the site is within the Coastal Commission's permitting jurisdiction, the applicant is also required to obtain a coastal development permit from the Coastal Commission. Additionally, the project is consistent with the city zoning ordinance because the use is allowed by right. The project was reviewed for compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act as well. Staff determined the project qualified as a statutory exemption restoration project, or SERP. After filing the required SERP application with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the agency agreed with this determination and issued a concurrence letter on October 9th, 2020. Extensive public outreach has occurred during the design and environmental review process. In addition to community outreach meeting, there have been multiple meetings and outreach events to discuss the project with interested parties and resource agencies, including the Buena Vista Lagoon Joint Powers Committee, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the San Diego Association of Governments. Additionally, project updates have been provided to the public through social media posts on the Buena Vista Audubon Society website. The project has complied with the city's enhanced notification program, and thus far, there has been general positive reaction to the project. So in closing, staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt Planning Commission Resolution 2025-P1 approving regular coastal permit RC 24-2. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions. And we also have the Executive Director of the Audubon Society to provide a presentation as well.
Okay. Well, do we have any questions for Shannon? Go ahead. Commissioner Ogden.
In reading through the report, I understand that the city of Carlsbad is also on a similar track. Can you give us an update as to where that is?
Commissioner Ogden, Commissioners, I'm not able to update you on the process with Carlsbad, but I believe the applicant can do so.
Okay, fine.
Well, thank you, Shannon. Would the representative for the Audubon like to come up and say any words?
Okay, thank you, Commissioners, for considering our project. I'm Natalie Shapiro, Executive Director, Buena Vista Audubon. Let me just get the technology sorted out here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Again, a wetland reserve coastal habitat restoration resiliency project. And one of the commissioners had a question about Carlsbad. Would you like me to answer that now or wait till the end of the presentation? Sorry?
Yes, you can.
Okay, we're going to wait till we're finishing up working with the City of Oceanside, and then with the City of Carlsbad, we're starting working with them now. And any further questions, my colleague Julie Fontaine, she's a restoration ecologist, can.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Okay, yes, you're welcome. Okay. Okay, hang on a sec. Okay, looks like I don't know how to use this clicker. Okay, I'd just like to briefly share a little bit about my organization, Buena Vista Audubon Society. Our mission is to protect and preserve our region's birds, biodiversity, and threatened habitats, and to promote conservation of our natural resources through advocacy, education, and both habitat restoration and management. Giving a brief description of where the project is located. I think you all know, you're familiar with the area. It's right adjacent, directly adjacent to the north shore of the Buena Vista Lagoon. And you can see our nature center across the street from Coast Highway, that there's a pond that I think many of you may have walked on. That's part of the nature center complex. And the nature center ties in with a wetland reserve project site. So the goals of our project: restore native habitats, so creating a mosaic of native plant, upland, and wetlands habitats, improving what's there now. And another important goal is integrating the design with a larger Buena Vista Lagoon restoration project and accommodating for sea level rise. Also, water quality improvements and controlling existing erosion on site, maintaining public and coastal access via nature trail, and reconnecting the indigenous and local communities to the wetland reserve area. So Shannon Vitale gave a pretty good background. Commissioner Balma, yes, we are very excited that the community helped us acquire the land, and if it wasn't for the community, we wouldn't have protected, saved it, and have title to it now. So we're very grateful for the community in helping us do that. So once we acquired it, we knew a long-term goal was to restore it, but the immediate goal was to protect it. So after we started receiving grants, the first one, 2022, we could proceed on planning the project. And I won't go into detail on the land ownership because Ms. Vitale already described that, the different jurisdictions, and it's within the coastal zone. So it's a complicated project. And I want to do just an acknowledgement of the funders. The Dorrance Family Foundation gave us our first grant in 2022 and continued that the next year, along with Preserve Calavera. And we have two representatives of Preserve Calavera here. And then the Coastal Conservancy last year gave us a grant. So most of the grants we've received were from private foundations or organizations, and then the state Coastal Conservancy was the last one we received. So issues for those who have been there, there's a lot of invasive species, ice plants taking over. There's Bermuda grass and a lot of other invasive plants. This reduces the biological importance of the area, and it's just not as pleasant place for the community to experience nature. There's also a lot of soil erosion. There's a picture of the alley coming off Eaton Street with a lot of erosion, urban runoff, and that deposits sediment and pollutants into the lagoon. The trail's not the best trail to walk on. It just appeared over time. It's not planned, and we could do better for the community. There's also historic loss of wetlands. Back in the day, it was common to place fill in wetlands at the edge of the lagoon and fill it in for development. And we found this was the case here. So there's historic loss of wetlands on site. So here's a grading plan, and what we're proposing here is to grade the historic fill to expand and enhance the current wetlands. This will also allow for transitional areas for future conditions, and those future conditions will be when the Buena Vista Lagoon is restored and there's sea level rise. I'm showing this slide again, and this shows once the project's completed, the habitat types. The blue is open water, and then there's a gradation of marsh all the way up to different habitats, including coastal sage scrub. You can see in the middle of the map a faint line that depicts the current trail where that is located now. And this slide just shows nicely the proposed trail that I'll get into in a little bit. It's more upland. That's the brown lines there. And then an important part of the trail system is in the middle where the triangle area is. There'll be a gathering area for the indigenous peoples that we're working with. So there's 3 members here of the San Luis Rey Band, and we appreciate working with them. They're helping us make this a really good project. And let's see. Okay, so I mentioned future conditions. Once the larger lagoon is restored, the water level will drop because the weir is removed in the soil excavation. It'll also transform into a saltwater condition. So the water level, so you see how the habitat will shrink down in that slide to the left. And then with sea level rise, the marsh will enhance and increase. And this is called wetlands migration. So we always have wetlands in the future and a space to accommodate sea level rise. Another goal is improving water quality. So there's 2 areas that have some significant issues. In this slide, it shows the photo on the right is where that white fence is. That's the end of Broadway Street right after a heavy rain event. And there's a lot of soil erosion being carried down into the lagoon. So we've worked with our engineers, and one of the homeowners that lives nearby we came up with an idea to funnel the water, divert the water into like at the slide at the left, you see these erosion control features, and that'll just slow down the force of water coming down from Broadway Street and filter the sediment before it hits the lagoon. And then the slide to the right, the alley on Eaton Street, a similar situation there with erosion. So water will be diverted to, you see that in the middle it says bioswale. It's like a dry stream bed with gravel, and that'll filter water and sediment and then collect at a basin and then enter the lagoon a little less full of sediment than before. And this is just another a detail on the alley off Eaton Street. Another important, very critical piece of the project is enhancing the current trail, so moving the trail up away from the lower area. It'll be ADA compliant with gravel. And there's a lookout area to the left off Broadway. We wanted to have an area where the public could enjoy looking at the wetlands, but we wanted to move it away from the neighbors so it wouldn't impinge on their privacy and safety. And the trail has 2 entry points right now off Eaton Street and Broadway, and then to the right, the lower right, you see it just sort of ends. The idea is we're working with the city on a proposed crosswalk, so once that's in place, we can design the end of the trail to connect with that crosswalk, which will then connect the wetland reserve with the nature center. Right now, people are running across Coast Highway back and forth, and it's not safe. I know one of our Indigenous elders had a bad experience, Miss Diana Caudell. Anyway, so we are working on that. And then the triangle areas and the gathering area for helping facilitate reconnecting Indigenous peoples to their ancestral homelands. This will be a space for healing and various gatherings. And then I won't go into the public outreach and input too much, but this is a long list of everything we've done working with the community. Whenever somebody came to us with a suggestion or an issue, we worked with them. It might have taken months, but it was important. We really want the community to like this project because they helped save this land. So it was important to us to do the right thing. And then I mentioned working with Indigenous peoples. We're working with the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians and an Indigenous-led nonprofit in Valley Center called Ataham Pamquan. So the idea is to reconnect we're focusing a lot on young people, trying to help heal generational trauma from being forcibly displaced from their homelands. So via connecting with the wetland reserve. So we've been doing different events at the wetland reserve and our nature center to help with this process. And benefits, I won't go through each one, but I think I made it clear all the project benefits that this project can provide. And I think that is it. And thank you for your time.
I think we had a question from the Commissioner Rosales.
Thank you for your presentation, very informative. You might have answered my question because I think one of your slides and what you said kind of touched on it, but I'm curious about the interface between your project and the neighbors that are right there in terms of the types of walls or fences that they have. Can you talk about that interface and how that's going to look or feel, or do they have any obligation, or is it, how's that going to work?
Do you mean, did you say like with the nature center, the fencing and?
Well, no, somebody's house, it's bordering your property, you know, and they have their backyard there. Is it, you know, what's that going to look like? Is it kind of like today, or do you have a plan for that interface and how that might work?
Right, so let me go back to, so this slide shows the trail. So right below the homeowner's properties, it's a very steep bank. And to build a trail up there, the fill that'll come up from the wetlands being graded will be placed below the neighbor's property, when that's where the trail will be. So they were a lot of them were concerned about the trail being too close to their property, so we moved it away as far as it was possible. We couldn't move it any further away from their properties than it is now without impinging on the proposed wetlands. And so we're still in the works as far as what vegetation would be in place for privacy. So right now there's some big trees that are invasive, and we're aware that removing them, first of all, can cause soil erosion, but also could remove privacy. So we're still working on that detail, how to accommodate the neighbors. And then fencing, we're still working on, I believe the site plans have some really good details on where the fence locations are, but we're considering some fencing that provides some privacy on the neighbor's side of the trail.
I'm glad to hear that, because I think their privacy and how they interact with something that's going to be new in their backyard essentially is important for that reason. So thank you.
Right. And we worked with them closely. That part of the trail where you see on the Broadway side where it comes out, and then the trail that goes along parallel to the neighbors does a strange little bend. That's where we moved it out as far as possible. We worked with one of the homeowners right there, and he said, I really like the idea of a lookout area as far away from the houses as possible, and also keeping the trail away. And so that's where we came up with the design for that lookout, and that's why the lookout goes out. And we felt that alleviated a lot of his concerns. But we still need to figure out what kind of vegetation and fence on the neighbor's side would provide privacy. But it's also still steep enough that that combined with certain vegetation would allow for privacy. For example, saltbush would be an example of a plant. So it has to be fire-wise as well. That's another key component.
Thank you. I see no other requests to speak. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Do we have any any public requests to speak?
Yes, Chair Morrissey, we do have 2 signed up, it looks like, so I'm going to clear the screen here, hopefully.
I don't know how to exit. Okay.
As you know, Ms. Diane, you have 3 minutes to speak, and state your name clearly for the audio.
On the thing. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Diane Nygaard, representing Preserve Talavera. It's been estimated that San Diego County has lost 95% of its historic wetland. So opportunities like this to actually restore and create wetlands are extremely hard to find and are so important. We always talk about natural wetlands as being the lungs of the watershed. as Natalie said, it slows down the flow of the water, it helps with flooding, with erosion, but they also help, by slowing it down, help pollutants to be removed from the water. So tremendous community benefit. It has been a long, complicated process to get this project this far. Buena Vista Audubon and the folks supporting them and city staff put tremendous effort into it. And so we very much would appreciate your support so our community can get all of this benefits of this wonderful wetlands restoration. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Chair, Commissioners, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. Got three basic points. One is that's been brought up to the city repetitively over the years by the surrounding homeowners, and that is vectors like mosquitoes. And is this going to improve the invasion of mosquitoes during certain times of the year? Or is it going to have any impact in that area? The second question has been brought up to me, and that is, will it affect the ability for children and low-income people to go fishing at the pond down there? Because that's been a long time available sporting area that people have enjoyed for decades. I can remember back when I was a kid going down there and fishing, even though I wasn't supposed to go up onto the train tracks, but did it anyway. Then there's another question of the history going back. And this going back to the 60s and 70s, and even beyond that, is that during flooding, this is a common area where they called the Carlsbad Crossing. And during heavy rain periods, it was common for that area to basically flood. Has this been addressed, and will it be taken into consideration? And in the past, also in the history of the area, they had what they called the beach cut through. People used to cut through the back area there, and you can still see some of the old trail cutting through to the beach. And will that be allowed to exist? Plus also, there was a nice elderly couple back in the 1960s and the early 70s, if my memory serves me correct, that used to camp there in a nice old VW van. And they would do it whether it was legal or not, that's where they would stay. And I remember that very fondly, especially going down there fishing off and on. So those are some points which I thought I'd bring up for you to consider.
Thank you. Shannon, I guess of all of that, I guess one question would be the fishing. Can you opine on whether or not they can fish, or can somebody address that?
Commissioner Morrissey, Commissioners, I will defer to Natalie and the project applicant to answer that question.
I can address Jimmy Knott, thank you for your concerns, and it's always good to see you at meetings. So the mosquitoes, the impact on expanding the wetlands would be minimal when you consider that the larger Buena Vista Lagoon is about 220 acres, and this is just expanding the current freshwater wetlands in a very minimal way, so it wouldn't increase. But once the larger lagoon restoration occurs and the entire area is converted to saltwater, that's the key. That's a really key thing right here, is the larger Buena Vista Lagoon. That'll solve our mosquito problems. So this is just a small piece of the larger area. Fishing impacts would be none. The pond, I think the pond you mentioned, that's the one at the Nature Center? I think the pond, there's a pond at the Nature Center that kids love to fish there. That won't be changed at all. We know they love fishing there. and that's great. I don't know what they catch. It's a lot of tiny mosquito fish, but to me, it's like a social thing. So that's not going to be affected. The other place I see people fishing is the Coast Highway Bridge. That won't be affected by this project at all. Flooding, this should help with flooding by expanding the wetlands and grading. That'll accommodate more water. But again, it's still the larger lagoon restoration that needs to be done to fix the flooding problem. And then an access for low income, oh my gosh, I mean, this is what we really want. We want everyone to be able to go there. So the trail will be improved so more people can have access. It's going to be ADA, so everybody has access. So, I mean, that's a really big part of the project. And the cut-through area, I think you mean when you go under the bridge through the wetland reserve, the railroad bridge. So that'll still be maintained. We know people will still go there to fish, so we're not going to restrict that because the access from there is actually along the outside of wetland reserve project. It's on city land, so we know the community will still want to go there. So I think I answered your questions. I don't know if there's anything else, but thank you for bringing that up. So.
Thank you. Are there any other requests?
No other requests to speak at this time on this item.
Okay. All right, the public hearing segment is over. Taking it back to the Planning Commission. Are there any comments?
I'll
make a motion, please.
Yeah, first I'd like to say thank you for everybody's involvement in getting this project to this point. I know, as Diane said earlier, it's taken many years and a lot of effort, and echoing what Diane also said, I understand too that the loss of lagoons is huge for the county. So this is a good example of trying to reverse or at least hang on to a little piece of what makes this area so great. So that being said, I will offer a motion to approve regular coastal permit 24-2 by adopting Planning Commission Resolution 2025 P01 with the findings and conditions therein.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Let the record show that the motion passes 6-0.
We'd like to call item 5, which is a consideration of a development plan, tentative parcel map, and density bonus application to allow the construction of a 100% affordable housing project consisting of 199 rental apartments and associated amenities and site improvements. The project includes 2 multifamily buildings comprised of units ranging from 540 square feet to 1,109 square feet, approximately 35,000 square feet of common usable open space, and 382 on-site parking spaces, and a new pedestrian connection, which is currently vacant. This is located at the western terminus of Olive Drive, just south of College Boulevard Sprinter Station. The project would impact 10.87 acres of the total site area, and the remaining 32.63 acres would be placed in a conservation easement and designated as open space. Shannon.
Disclosures?
Thank you. Let's start on the other end.
Okay. Well, we have had a very extensive staff report, EIRs, lots of documents to go through. Lots of emails were sent to me, and I did an extensive site visit also, which was also, eye-opening.
I would echo that. I visited the site, met with some of the local residents, read through the reports, very thorough. Thank you.
Also went to the site several times, met with some local folks, talked to one of the planners at NCTD, and had multiple meetings with staff.
Thank you. Staff report, lots of emails and printouts in front of us this evening with some good renderings. Also met with some neighbors and did a site visit, and I think that's it. Commissioner Ogden?
Read the staff report, read the comments, read everything that we were given, and also visited the site. Spent about an hour and a half there this morning, taking a look at traffic patterns, et cetera. And very interesting.
Report, emails, letters, phone calls, and went by the site and did a real good look around, so.
Now Shannon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Commissioner Morrissey, Commissioners. Again, Shannon Vitale, Senior Planner in the Development Services Department. The second item I'm here to discuss with you tonight is Agenda Item Number 5, Olive Park Apartments Project. The project consists of a development plan, tentative parcel map, and density bonus to allow the construction of 199 affordable housing units and associated amenities and site improvements. The project site, which is outlined in black on this slide, is located at the western terminus of Olive Drive, just south of the College Boulevard Sprinter Station. The total project site encompasses approximately 43.5 acres. The site, which is currently vacant, is surrounded by residential development to the east and south, the North County Transit District rail line, College Boulevard Sprinter Station, Loma Alta Creek, and industrial and commercial uses to the north, and open space to the west. The property has a general plan land use designation of medium density residential, a zoning designation of single family residential, and is located within the Maricosta neighborhood planning area. As illustrated on this slide, there is disturbed habitat, which is shown in yellow, and non-native grasslands, disturbed habitat, which is shown in gray, and non-native grasslands shown in yellow on the northeastern portions of the parcel. Native vegetation, including coastal sage scrub, which is shown in brick color, and southern mixed chaparral, shown in brown on this slide, is located on the southern and western portions of the parcel. Loma Alta Creek flows east to west through the western portion of the parcel. On June 26th of 2024, the City Council selected the Olive Park Apartment Project as one of 3 projects to receive financial assistance for developing a 100% affordable rental housing project. The project was awarded $6 million of city funding. Pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, an Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, has been prepared. The project that was analyzed in the draft EIR included the development of a maximum of 282 housing units. The EIR also identified 3 project alternatives: the no-build alternative, the reduced density alternative, or RDA, and the reduced footprint alternative. Responding to input received during the public review period, the RDA project, which was also determined to be the environmentally superior project, was selected as the preferred project, and it is this project that was described in the staff report and is being brought to you tonight for your consideration. The RDA project requires 3 entitlements. The first is a development plan to allow for the construction of a 199-unit residential development and associated site improvements. The second is a tentative parcel map to subdivide the existing parcel into 3 separate parcels. And the third is a density bonus application to construct a 100% affordable housing project pursuant to state law. The total impact area for the RDA project is 10.87 acres and includes a 6.33 acre development pad area located at the northeastern portion of the parcel. The remaining site acreage, which totals 32.63 acres, would be placed in a conservation easement. As illustrated on this slide, the total impact area, which is outlined in red, is located at the northeastern portion of the parcel that is primarily disturbed habitat and non-native grassland. The project avoids the Loma Alta Creek and maintains more than 100-foot buffer from the riparian areas located on the western portion of the parcel. Extensive perimeter landscaping, including a landscaped open space area with bench seating at the northeastern corner of the parcel, would be established on site. This open space area, which the property manager would maintain, is designed to be accessible to the public and would include the construction of a pedestrian bicycle pathway to the College Boulevard Sprinter Station that is located just north of the project site. The applicant coordinated with the North County Transit District regarding the alignment of the path, and NCTD voiced support for this component of the project because it would increase accessibility to the Sprinter Station and would be available for use by not only the existing neighborhood, but also proposed residents. Although on-site parking is not required, the project also includes 382 parking spaces on-site. As can be seen on this slide, the parking spaces are distributed around the perimeter of the buildings and in the western portion of the developable pad. The RDA project includes 2 separate 4-story buildings with a maximum height of 50 feet. The buildings would contain 199 units ranging in square footage from 540 square feet to 1,109 square feet. The floor plans range from 1 to 3 bedrooms as detailed on this slide. There's approximately 36,000 square feet of common open space, which includes amenities such as community gardens, courtyards, a dog run, a playground, and a paseo area to walk around. The proposed density of the project is 5.7 dwelling units per acre. This density is below the allowable density for the RS zoning district, which is 5.9 dwelling units per acre. The project entrance would be enhanced with landscaping, an entryway sign, decorative fencing, and a publicly accessible open space area with walking path and seating. There would also be 100 feet of new sidewalk installed at the western edge of Olive Drive and a publicly accessible pathway to the College Sprinter Station. This is a rendering of what the project would look like from the terminus of Olive Drive. The proposed architecture is a contemporary Spanish style that incorporates tower elements, an arched entryway, red clay tile roof, iron balcony railings, decorative window awnings, and stucco walls. As shown on this slide, a single continuous retaining wall is proposed along the northern boundary of the development pad. The retaining wall would follow the existing topography and would be a maximum of 32 feet at its uppermost point. Due to the topography of the site and the proposed landscaping to be planted along the perimeter of the developable pad area, the wall will primarily only be visible from the rail line. Access to the site would utilize a new driveway off of Olive Drive. Resident and guest access from Olive Drive would lead to internal vehicular drives and pedestrian walkways. The internal drive aisles surrounding the buildings are designed at 28 and 36-foot minimum widths. The site has been designed in consultation with the Oceanside Fire Department and would accommodate fire apparatus trucks and other service vehicles. It should be noted that Olive Drive was never intended to remain a cul-de-sac, as shown in the figure on the left of the slide, because Olive Drive is the only legal access to the parcel. As part of the final map approval for the College Park Estates Unit Number 8, which is the existing neighborhood immediately east of the project site, a 1-foot strip of Olive Drive was granted to the City of Oceanside. Through this 1-foot strip connection, access to the project site from Olive Drive was designed and implemented with the original subdivision map that was designed to provide a direct connection to the project site. You can see here on the image on the left. As part of this project, 32.63 acres would be placed in an open space conservation easement managed in perpetuity by an agency, nonprofit organization, or other entity approved by both the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. The project's conditioned to provide a habitat management plan that details how the open space conservation easement would be managed, maintained, and monitored. This plan would require approval by both the city and the wildlife agencies. As illustrated on this slide, in addition to the existing 14.72 acres of coastal sage scrub that's on site, another 3.72 acres of disturbed habitat would be restored to coastal sage scrub. This results in approximately 19 acres of coastal sage scrub preserved and restored on site. The tentative parcel map that's requested to subdivide the existing parcels into 3 separate parcels as follows. Parcels 1 and parcel B would make up the total impact area, which is 10.87 acres. This includes the development pad area and the manufactured slopes surrounding the development pad, as well as the public open space area. Parcel A is the land set aside under the conservation easement and is 32.63 acres. The density bonus application is a request to construct a 100% affordable housing project. 40 units would be set aside for moderate income households earning no more than 120% AMI. 157 units would be set aside for low income households earning no more than 80% AMI. And 2 units would be set aside for on-site property managers or maintenance staff. Pursuant to state law, by reserving 100% of the project units as affordable, the project's entitled to 4 incentives or concessions. The applicant has requested 2 concessions for this project. The first is to reduce the usable open space area, and the second is to waive certain provisions of the hillside development regulations. The applicant has provided reasonable documentation in the form of a cost analysis for each requested concession that details the identifiable cost reductions that result by granting those concessions. Staff has evaluated the requested concessions and has determined that a specific adverse impact would not result by granting the requested concessions to the applicant. project is also eligible for an unlimited number of waivers from development standards. In order to construct the project as proposed, the applicant is requesting waivers from the following development standards: building type, maximum retaining wall height, plannable wall requirements, and hillside development regulations. As outlined on this slide, there are 3 reasons a local government can deny an incentive concession and/or waiver. The first reason is if the project would have a specific adverse impact. A specific adverse impact is defined as a significant, quantifiable, direct, and unavoidable impact based on objective, identified, written public health or safety standards, policies, or conditions. Staff has reviewed the requested concessions and waivers and did not determine there would be a specific adverse impact by granting the request. Additionally, the project would not result in an adverse impact to historical resources and would not be contrary to state or federal law. As described in the staff report, staff reviewed the project for compliance with the general plan. The project's consistent with the goals and policies of the land use element, specifically regarding community enhancement, land use compatibility, housing, landscaping, natural resource management, and vegetation and wildlife habitats. The project complies with the goals and policies of the housing element because it provides 199 affordable housing units to the city's housing stock. Specifically, the project implements housing element policies that encourage the following: higher density housing along transit corridors, production of affordable housing, and providing housing opportunities for low and moderate income households. The project was reviewed for compliance with the energy and climate action element and found to be consistent with that element because it promotes smart growth and multimodal transportation. The project site's located adjacent to the Oceanside Boulevard, College Boulevard Smart Growth Opportunity Area as designated by SANDAG and is in close proximity to a wide range of commercial uses, including restaurants, retail stores, and grocery stores. The site is immediately south of the existing College Boulevard Sprinter Station, and project design features such as the new pedestrian connection to the Sprinter Station will encourage future residents of the project to utilize existing transit. As part of the project, 32.63 acres of land would be preserved in perpetuity as an open space conservation easement. This area, which is shown in green at the image on the bottom of the slide, would be enhanced with the planting and establishment of native plants, including coastal sage scrub, that provide vital habitat for many sensitive and protective species. Therefore, staff found the project compliant with the goals and policies of the Energy and Climate Action Element and the Climate Action Plan. Since the project site is located in the single-family zoning district, it's subject to the provisions of Article 10 of the zoning ordinance. As detailed in the staff report, the project complies with or exceeds most development standards for the RS zoning district. And where it does not, as previously discussed, the applicant is seeking waivers and incentives or concessions from the development standards consistent with state law. Due to the topography of the parcel, the project was also reviewed for compliance with the hillside development provisions. As explained in the staff report and earlier in this presentation, consistent with state law, the applicant has requested incentives and concessions and waivers from certain regulations of the hillside development provisions. The project was reviewed for compliance with the Climate Action Plan ordinance and as proposed meets or exceeds all applicable requirements as shown on the slide. The proposed density for the RDA project is 5.7 DUs dwelling units per acre, which is below the allowable density for the single-family zoning district that is 5.9 dwelling units per acre. Furthermore, the project site has an underlying general plan land use designation of medium density residential, which allows a density of 9.9 dwelling units per acre. Therefore, the proposed RDA project is well below the permitted density for both the land use and the zoning designations. In accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, an environmental impact was prepared because potential impacts to air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, and tribal cultural resources were identified. A public scoping meeting was held on May 9th of last year to gather input from the community. Comments received from the public included concerns with site access, soil stability, traffic, emergency ingress and egress, biological resources, noise, and air quality. The draft EIR was circulated for a 45-day public review period on October 25th. Staff received 26 letters during the public review period. All letters received and staff's response to the comments received were included in the final EIR. As mentioned earlier, the draft EIR included an analysis of 3 project alternatives, and it's the reduced density alternative that's before you tonight. The final EIR and the mitigation monitoring and reporting program were posted online and made available for public review beginning January 17th. The project has been conditioned to comply with all project design features included in the final EIR and all mitigation measures listed in the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program. With implementation of the project design features and mitigation measures, the project will not have a significant impact on the environment. The project has complied with the city's enhanced notification program. There was a notice of application sign placed at the terminus of Olive Drive, and a notice was mailed out to all property owners within 1,500 feet radius and all tenants within a 100-foot radius of the project site. In addition to the scoping meeting that was held on May 9th of 2024, the applicant held 2 community outreach meetings at the El Corazon Senior Center. Each meeting was well attended, as you can see by these pictures. Additionally, the applicant conducted additional outreach throughout the application review process, which included 28 meetings and 7 phone calls with a total of 49 neighbors and community members. And I believe additional outreach occurred since I wrote this. A summary of comments received is included in the community outreach report attached to the staff report. A significant amount of correspondence has been received regarding the proposed project, and those emails have been forwarded to you. Primary concerns raised by opponents include site access, traffic impacts, emergency access, impacts to biological resources, and then soil and geotechnical conditions, and noise and air quality. In the next few slides, I'll go over the issues raised by opponents and staff's response. So many opponents of the project have stated that the project should not be accessible via Olive Drive. However, as was previously mentioned and is explained in the staff report, Olive Drive is the only legal access to the parcel. The figure on the left is taken from the final map for the College Park Estates project. Again, as you can see, Olive Drive was not designed as a cul-de-sac. It was designed to provide a direct connection to the project site. Additionally, the site is extremely constrained. The only feasible access to the project site is to extend Olive Drive. A connection to the project site from the west or south would require going through sensitive habitat, including areas considered undevelopable due to the slope and riparian corridor. Due to the north, access from Avenida del Oro is infeasible due to habitat impact and the existing rail line. Many opponents have stated that the project will create adverse traffic impacts along College and Olive Drive. A local transportation study was prepared for the project. As shown on this slide, the study indicates the existing level of service will not change with the proposed project, and the project will not have an impact on the intersection or road segment level of service.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you. Additionally, the project trip generation used in the LTS is higher than the RDA trip generation by approximately 31% because it analyzed the original project, not the reduced density alternative. Therefore, the LTS analyzed more traffic and provides a conservative analysis over the project before you tonight of 199 minutes. Project opponents have also expressed concerns with emergency access. The project plans have been reviewed and approved by the fire department and police department. Representatives from the fire department are here tonight should you have questions for them regarding their review or approval process. Some opponents to the project have stated the project will have an adverse impact on biological resources. The applicant and staff have discussed the project with both the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. To offset the direct impacts to habitat that occur within the total impact area, 32.63 acres of the parcel will be placed in the conservation easement. This easement would be managed in perpetuity and approved by the wildlife agencies. A majority of the sensitive and protected habitat on site is located within that area, so therefore staff does not, the EIR indicated there would not be an adverse impact to biological resources. And additionally, there are specific conditions of approval placed on the project to address the project site's location near environmentally sensitive habitat. The project also includes project design features and other mitigation measures to ensure the project will have a less than significant impact to biological resources. Some neighboring property owners have expressed concerns with the stability of the site and prior landslides. The engineering division has reviewed the project plans and the geotechnical report prepared for the project, and they've determined the project is consistent with applicable engineering standards and code requirements. As detailed in the geotechnical report, the project site's existing soil and geologic conditions do not preclude the proposed development, as long as the recommendations made in the report are implemented during the design and construction phase. The project has been conditioned to comply with all geotechnical recommendations in the geotechnical report. Some opponents have expressed concerns with noise impacts. As detailed in the EIR, The results of the noise and vibration technical analysis indicate the potential noise impacts during construction and operation of the project would be less than significant. Concerns with air quality have also been brought up. With the incorporation of the mitigation measures, the project was determined to have a less than significant impact on air quality. The project is conditioned to comply with all mitigation measures, therefore, there is no significant. I would like to acknowledge that following the posting of the staff report and resolution, there was a revision to condition of approval number 93. It has been provided to you by email, and you should all have a copy on your desk. The additional language was at the request of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, and they requested that we put in language that clarifies that 3.69 acres of disturbed habitat will be restored to coastal sage scrub. And then the language also outlines the requirements for the habitat restoration plan and the implementation schedule and vegetation monitoring plan. So in closing, staff finds the proposed project is consistent with the requirements of the general plan and zoning ordinance, and therefore is recommending the Planning Commission certify the environmental impact report by adopting resolution number 2025 P3 and approve the development plan D246, tentative parcel map P242, and density bonus DB241 for the Olive Park Apartments project.
Thank you,
I know that was a
Shannon.
lot. Thank you.
That was a lot to get through.
We
And-
do also have the applicant and his team here as well, and they'll be doing a presentation.
Well, I think we have some questions for you before you resign. Commissioner Rosales.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon, for that presentation. I had a couple of questions. Maybe for the benefit of the audience and maybe some of the commissioners, can you, without belaboring it, maybe touch on some of the elements of the hillside development standards or regulations? Because we've been asked to waive all of them, and I guess would be part B of my question. Are we waiving in this proposition to waive all of them, or being asked to waive all of those, or some of them? So maybe you can touch on what makes up the hillside development standards.
Sure. So Commissioner Rosales and commissioners, the hillside development provisions apply to any land that, let me get the exact percentage here. Sorry, just 1 second. So this project is subject to the hillside development regulations because it has slopes that exceed 20%. And this applicant is requesting, they're requesting a waiver from the manufactured slope requirement, the hillside grading requirement, and the topographical features requirement of the hillside provisions. And they're requesting a concession from the hillside development regulation that pertains to building design, building wall offset, and roof plane area. Do you want me to explain more of what the condition is?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And again, those sound like they were a portion of the standards as opposed to all of them?
Correct.
Okay.
So in our zoning ordinance, there's a complicated chart, but I can read it, what the actual requirement is, and then what the applicant is requesting, if that would be helpful for the commission.
Sure.
Okay. So let me pull that up, sorry.
Shannon, while you're looking for that, and take your time, I had a second question unrelated to that for the fire department about the evacuation plan. Do you want to go, have you found what you're looking for, or do you want to go there?
I have found it, the
Okay.
hillside development provisions.
Hold that
Okay.
second question.
Sure. So again, section 3039 of our zoning ordinance is the hillside development provisions. And it, again, for certain properties that exceed the slope of 20%, these properties are subject to the regulations. Let me find the best one. Okay. So the building design regulation is hillside development regulation 2A. And, oh goodness. Actually, maybe it would be, I'm sorry, maybe it would be better for the fire department to come up so I can have a more expeditious.
Maybe to expedite things, maybe we could pause this until the applicant might have a civil engineer, and maybe the civil engineer can put it in layman's terms rather than reading from a book that's, kind of harder to understand, if that's something that the applicant can do.
I'm fine with that. Do you mind if I ask the second question?
You bet.
Somebody from the fire department, if you would come forward. I had a question about the EVAC plan, specifically because I think Shannon had a slide saying it was looked at by both your department and the police department. When you do that exercise, what kind of metrics are you looking at to determine, yeah, we're good here or we're not good here? Because I think when I did a visit with at the site with some of the neighbors, the concern was you put this extra development on Olive, and that's their only exit, essentially. Major concern for the residents was if there's an event, fire, or whatnot, their concern is everybody going to be able to get out? So maybe you can touch on kind of what do you look at when you look at a situation like that to help us understand that we're good or we're not good?
Certainly, Chair Morrissey and Commissioners, Blake Dorse, Community Risk Reduction Division Chief from the Fire Department. Just to be clear, this project hasn't been conditioned with an evacuation plan based on it not being in a high or very high severity zone for wildfires. With that being said, of course, anytime we're looking at a project and the fire department's reviewing it, we do take into consideration evacuations as one of the key points. I would like to point out that you're not going to be able to put any development project in the city without having an increase in the amount of time it takes to evacuate an area. It's not doable. So with that being said, we can't just look at the evacuation and pinpoint that as one reason to deny or approve a project from our perspective. We have to look at a whole picture approach. And to get to the root of your question, some of the things we look at is where it is located geographically in the city. I understand that a lot of people, especially with the recent events in Los Angeles County, are very, very concerned about the threat of wildfire. When you take a look at where this is located within the city, there's not a large swath of land that abuts a developed area, which is one of the things that creates those conditions we saw in Los Angeles County. So we take into condition, where it is in the city, how developed and how urban it is. We take into consideration how much brush or vegetation is going to abut the project. In this case, this project is actually going to increase the buffer between existing properties and where the brush is located. We also take into consideration the California Fire Code, making sure that it is applied correctly to the project and the building construction and features of the project to make sure that they're fire safe. So we take a whole picture account looking at all those different things. In respect to evacuation specifically, I'll just return to, you cannot build a project in this city, especially in the difficult parcels, without somewhat increasing negatively the amount of time it's going to take to evacuate people.
So in your estimation, the project or Olive Drive, the existing residents there, being neighbors to the coastal scrub and the easement area is not a concern in terms of if there was a fire event, that would be any more impactful than what we have there today?
I don't think that there's going to be an increase to the fire threat based on this project. I think the question that a lot of people have is it going to, how are we going to treat evacuations? We're going to treat evacuations just as we would today. We have a lot of software today available to us that allows us to do systematic evacuations of areas. We would implement that and utilize that, and we would take into consideration how fast the fire is moving. We have evacuation orders and warnings, and we would warn people before we issued the orders so that we could reduce the negative impact of the logjam that we see in evacuations. With that being said, there's no evacuation that is going to go seamless. The streets and roads are not designed with this project or without this project in any city, in any jurisdiction, to accommodate large mass evacuations, especially when you have the type of fire conditions, that we've seen lately. So it's unrealistic to expect that it's going to go smooth. With that being said, we do everything within our power to make it go as smooth as possible, implementing the technology we have available to us today.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We have another question from Commissioner
While our fire expert is up on the podium, and now he's gone.
Can you come back, sir?
I know we've heard from neighbors, and I've read someplace, and I was just trying to find where I read that, that because the project was dropped to 199 units versus when it was over that, the need for having two different access points was eliminated. So I'd like to hear your perspective on that and why one unit actually changed that whole access.
That's correct. And so this actually kind of highlights, how seriously we as the Oceanside Fire Department take fire and life safety within our community. We adopt certain appendices within the California Fire Code. We're not obligated to do so, but we take a pretty conservative approach here in the City of Oceanside as we care about the fire and life safety of our citizens, obviously. So within the Appendix D of the California Fire Code, which we've adopted, it designates specifically the number of units within a multifamily project that would require two means of fire department access. As soon as they drop below 200, they no longer need two means of fire department access. So if the project were larger in scale, we would require that, but based on the code section is why once it drops below 200, it's no longer required.
Is there anything then with this project that would want you to maybe, even though it does drop below that threshold, that you'd be concerned that you'd want to add the second exit? Or is it just something that because you've evaluated the whole riparian area, what's going on with the project, and you feel safe that the only one access is needed?
Yeah, again, obviously, anytime you can have two access points, that's better than one. If we could have three, that's better than two, and so on and so forth, obviously. But we do have to fall back to the fire code, and that's what we evaluate to make that determination. With that being said, we, again, take a whole picture approach to determine if we think that this is a significant threat to fire and life safety. And in our opinion, with the mitigating factors they have in place, all the things I mentioned earlier, we don't feel like there was a cause for the fire department to recommend denial of the project based on fire and life safety.
All right. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Tom?
Commissioner Ogden.
Thank you. I have a question for staff concerning traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer, but the two times I was out there, that intersection at El Camino Real and Oceanside Boulevard, I'm sorry, at College and College and Oceanside Boulevard is a complete mess. It's horrible. And when I was there taking a look at the project during peak times, I'm just wondering if there's any way that the lights could be adjusted to reflect and allow ingress and egress off of Olive onto College Boulevard. It just seems to me that, and when you come down that hill, as you come north on College, you take a look at that, you stop there anyway. So is there a way that you can control the lights to be able to allow somebody to get out? Because you can't get out now.
Commissioner Ogden, Planning Commissioners, we have our city's traffic engineer here. I will direct the question to her.
Right.
Good evening, Chair Morrissey and fellow chair people. My name is Tila Potter with the City of Oceanside, City Traffic Engineer. So there is coordination along College already, along that corridor, and there has been changes made to the signal of College and Olive to create protected left turns, what we call a split phase at that intersection. We were going to have the developer do it, but knowing how long that process would take, we took it into our hands and we did our own plans and we had it done in-house. And that was done December 18th, I think that was completed. And when I say that we did a split phase / protected left turns is before, when eastbound and westbound traffic would go, they would have to share that light and to be able to make their lefts and their throughs. Now, eastbound goes on their own, and then westbound goes separately, so that the westbound traffic has an opportunity to get out of the neighborhood without as many conflicts that were being communicated to us. And I can tell you want to ask a question. Go ahead.
Just so I understand what you say, but this morning, that certainly wasn't the case. I know there was a stop sign at the intersection of Oceanside Boulevard and College, because I don't know what was happening there. Maybe that impacted that.
There was an outage, from what I understand, and SDGE was out there. So that is not a normal case. That was one of a blue moon type of a situation that occurred today.
When was that change made? December 18th?
December, yeah, before the holidays.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Mallett?
So that was already implemented then, the designated left turn
Yes.
for each of those. Given the duration of that and the increased occupancy within this new development, will the timing of those lights be increased to enable further flow? Otherwise, you're already looking at traffic stacking up in each of those directions. But with an significant increase in the number of occupants and vehicles moving there, will those lights be adjusted to reflect longer turn times to go through there?
Yeah, Vice Chair Malik and Chair, yes, we will be looking into that. We'll monitor. So once the development is in place and then there's the traffic that's going through, we can definitely monitor and adjust the signals as feasible, because there is that balance of, having the corridor of College also keep moving, as well as everybody's aware, there is a lot of traffic there. So if we give more green time to Olive, then that will impact College. So it's trying to find that balance. And I will also add that my colleague has also gave me a heads up before this meeting that he did adjust the timing so that northbound traffic can move a little bit more to allow stacking space for when people want to come out of the neighborhood and make that left, so that they have some. I'm not going to say that's always going to be the case, but he has been trying to make those adjustments to accommodate that. But again, when you're doing the signal timing and you have a coordination and there's the railroad, it's a balance.
No, you've got a lot of factors there, I understand that. So is the traffic volume on College Boulevard then above where the road was designed to accommodate, so that we're already above a threshold of where the road was developed to, the amount of volume, the traffic volume that road was designed to handle? And now we're because of a variety of growth issues going on and increased density, we're seeing that at or above where it was truly designed to handle?
Can you give me, I don't have it right in front of me, but from the study, that some of the segments, I was more focused right now on Olive, so I can't remember off the top of my head what the the level of service was for College. So do you have that right on hand? Give me one second. So on College, it would be between Oceanside Boulevard and Olive, with the existing and cumulative, which includes a project, it would be an LOSF, which isn't good. And then between Olive and Thunder, it would be an LOSD, which under our standards is acceptable. And so, and that, like I said, that's with, so at existing right now, it's F and D, so nothing changes.
Okay.
Can I?
Commissioner Palmer.
I was just going to add to that, kind of in the same, paragraph here, whatever. Shannon, when you were talking about the LOS, the service, because I was surprised when I looked at all this, like, what, it doesn't even change anything? And you were saying actually, because I keep thinking it's got to change, right? But you said that the studies were actually done, I think you said, because you were talking so fast, that study was actually done when it was a higher level of units versus now it's 199, but you actually did the study based on a higher, right? So that means that all the study that was based on was like 200, and I forgot what it was, 280 units versus now this is 199, which means that all this was done based on that higher level, which shows that most of it doesn't change anything. Like all the interior streets within the community is fine. And yes, College sucks. We all know that. We all drive it. And it's not, it's already an F and a D, and that's just kind of the way it is. But then working with the traffic signals, which I've been inside your operational facility with all the screens there, you guys really do analyze all of that. And it's really kind of amazing how you can change all that to make it flow better. So that they are taking a look at all that. That is, it's the best they can do without having to, provide.
Yeah, and that's a question I had. So you can change the lights, say Olive and College, remotely from the traffic management center, or?
Yeah, yes, we could, but, and sometimes we do. But of course, there is added to actually going out into the field and watching it firsthand, if especially the cameras aren't working, or we need to be seeing both intersections at the same time from specific angles and stuff like that. But yeah, we can change it from the Transportation Management Center.
Because again, I'm thinking, going back to my previous question for the fire department, if there was an event, fire event, if you had that capability to remotely make that light off of Olive be green longer, I know you said also then you start impacting College, but if you had that capability, that certainly helps in a situation like that.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you.
I see, any other questions? Yes.
Going back to the traffic, I was sitting there, you were able to come off of Olive and make a left onto College, but you had to wait in the middle of the intersection because there were people coming from the other direction, and they were stuck in the middle of the road there. So you said it's an F, and it's not going to get any better than an F. It's just a bigger F, right? So it's just, I don't know.
When you turned left, though, did you have a left signal?
I had a left arrow.
And they weren't yielding?
Well, they were yielding because the light there, but they're already in the lane.
Yeah.
They're already on the.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
stacked up.
it's lower, so they get out first. Yeah,
don't-
but they have
no
a red,
right-hand turn.
technically, they have a red. They're taking a right on a red, and you got the left-hand turn signal.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the right on the red allows them to do that.
Yeah.
So that might have to be a concern there. You have to, no right on red, right? So, I mean, you have to consider that, because I was sitting there in the middle of the road. I can't go, even though I have a green arrow.
Yeah.
So no right on red would probably help on that, at least getting out and making a left.
Yes, Commissioner Bowman.
I have one more, I guess, traffic or street question, since you guys are on that subject right now. Existing Olive Avenue, when we drive out there, we see that this is a pretty quiet street, very, very, I guess it's a secondary street, whatever you call that in the traffic terms. And people are parked on both sides of the street, and there's not even a line that goes down the middle of it. Will that change when this development goes in? Is it going to be like, are they going to still be able to park on both sides of the street? And will there be like a striped line in the middle kind of designating, which way you're going on the street? Or is it still going to stay the same way? And when does that trigger like something like a line in the middle of the street to designate which side of the street you drive on?
There's lots of local streets around the city where there's no center line, especially in residential neighborhoods. But and to go back to the parking, if the street is wide enough for parking on both sides, which I think it is at this location, that would still be remaining. I don't see any reason to have the parking removed.
Right.
As for the double yellow, we can evaluate if there is concerns that people, are driving in the other side of the road that they shouldn't, or in the wrong way. We can always address it, but at this time, it's not planned to put a double yellow, but if the community wants it, I'm not against it.
I was just asking because I just wondered if a certain volume triggered that. So it sounds like even with 199 apartments on Olive, it wouldn't trigger anything that in as far as in the traffic world of rules and regulations.
There's guidelines, and I don't remember, to be honest, I don't remember the volume at the top of my head. There are guidelines, but in this case, again, it's really up to engineering judgment and what people's what people would like in the community. It's interesting where some people really want a center line and some people do not.
Right.
To carry on with that, with the center line and a double line, especially on a residential street, my experience, anecdotal, is that actually increases the speed that traffic flows on those streets. They think of it as more of a major thoroughfare. So that's all anecdotal, but I think that doesn't resolve something here.
Right.
It just gives you a marker to straddle.
Okay.
I see no more questions. There was a question on the table, but maybe we could leave that for the applicant, or do you have the answer on the, so go ahead, Shannon.
So Commissioner Morrissey, Commissioners, sorry for my delay earlier. So to answer your question regarding the hillside development regulations, there are 17 within our zoning ordinance. The applicant is asking for a total of 6. 3 would, and then I can go over each one if you'd like, and then I'll defer to the applicant if you want more information. The first one is regarding the grading limitations. So our zoning ordinance reads that no manufactured slope shall exceed 30 feet in height nor 400 feet in length. They're requesting a waiver to do a manufactured slope that would exceed 400 feet in length and would be up to 60 feet in height. So that's that difference. Also, the retaining wall height would be up to 33 feet in height and approximately 890 feet in length. So it'd be taller and longer than what the hillside provisions would state. The next one is regarding grading limitations. So our regulation per the zoning ordinance is the amount of hillside grading shall be limited to 7,500 cubic yards or less. This project is requesting a waiver to accommodate 142,360 cubic yards of cut. And let's see here.
Is that going to stay on site?
I'm sorry.
Is that a balanced site?
I'm sorry, I misspoke. A total would be 13.
Yeah, it's supposed to stay on site.
Yeah, and all of the soil will be on site. Just, I don't think that was brought up in my presentation. The next regulation, hillside regulation that the applicant is requesting a waiver from is another one regarding grading limitations. And our ordinance reads that lands considered to possess significant natural topographical features shall be preserved and integrated into the project design. This project is located on small areas that exceed 20% slopes, but they do avoid the more significant steep slopes of 40% and greater than 25 feet in elevation differential. So, did you want any more information on either of those? Okay.
Okay, I think that, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
Just on the same subject. Okay, so with the cut and the fill, we understand that, it's all going to stay on site. So there's an excess of 6,620 yards of fill, or excess, dirt. And they said they're just going to put it on different portions of the project. Is there any kind of, guidelines for that? Or is it just because they just put wherever they've, works out? Just wherever it works out? I guess the 6,620 yards.
Commissioner Balma, so through the consultation process with the Rincon Band of Luiseño Indians, there was a request that all fill stay on site because even the excess fill may contain some culturally significant artifacts or remnants. And so the applicant has agreed to find locations on site where you're not going to disturb habitat, where you're not going to disturb a wetland,
Right.
and place that fill, that cut, I should say,
Yeah.
on site somewhere.
Okay.
So we haven't determined that yet, but through the final engineering process, a location will be determined and
Thank you.
But I
identified.
think what Louise is asking, is it going to, when it's placed, is it going to be compacted? And
Well, I'm sure it will.
obviously
I'm
will
sure
be,
that, yeah, I just was kind
Yeah.
of curious that
Yeah.
they would just keep, now I understand why. So that makes, good sense as far as why. Thank you.
With no other questions, I see, would the applicant like to make a presentation? And sir, you have 20 minutes, so you can decide whether or not you want to take it all or do some and save some. So your choice.
I will proceed very briefly, but Dan will do the majority.
Very good, thank you.
Chair Morrissey, Commissioners, thank you for your time this evening. I'm Brian McHale from Capstone Equities. We are an affordable and workforce housing developer in Southern California, and we're here with our nonprofit partner, Las Palmas Housing, on this development based locally in North County. We're very excited to be here. It's been 3 years of a lot of work, a lot of community outreach, a variety of iterative designs that have landed us here with what we believe to be the best version that this project has seen. So we're very excited to present that to you all, and Dan will get into the details, but I'm certainly here to answer any questions, as well as our geotechnical engineers, our traffic engineers, and a few other folks as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Evening, Dan Ebaum for Lightfoot Planning Group, Carlsbad. Chair Morrissey and members of the commission. I'd like to thank Shannon for her excellent presentation, very thorough, probably one of the most thorough ones I've seen. Obviously generated a number of questions. I'm going to try to fill in a few more blanks maybe on how we got here and what was some of the preliminary work done. I think Shannon presented a lot of project details, but we have a little bit more information on some of our outreach and some of the constraints and factors that led to this design and looking at this site. So as Shannon had gone through the project site and density elements, we're on a site that allows unlimited density based on being a 100% affordable project, believe it or not, located within a half mile of a Sprinter station. And that's something that you look at when you find sites that can accommodate some density. So this project could have far more density on it. In fact, it's gone from 400 units initially proposed 2.5 years ago down to the 282 that was submitted, and then to the 199 that's in front of you tonight. And that was generated by a number of comments from the public and looking at options for the project and how to respond to some of those comments. So over time, the project's shrunk down to what makes sense for a 100% affordable housing project. And Shannon had gone through the density numbers before, but again, we are under the RS density at 5.7 DUs per acre, and the general plan for the site's actually medium density residential. Under state density bonus law, you could apply the medium density residential, go above that, but we have unlimited density based on the location that I just talked about. I've shown you this slide for a number of density bonus projects, but I wanted to bring it up again. This is from the Sand Egg Smart Growth Opportunity Areas map that was issued a number of years ago. But we're in community center, adjacent to Community Center 6. It was mentioned in Shannon's staff report. But again, smart growth opportunity areas are generally, in this case, are around the transit stations and transit corridors, areas that can accommodate more density. They're in key smart growth areas that have a mix of uses and that are more likely to support density. This is also the backing behind the city's Smart and Sustainable Corridors Plan, which you're familiar with, and it's part of the general plan update. Again, as the city's trying to leverage density and development in these corridors, this site's adjacent to that center and being connected directly to the Sprinter site makes it a valuable site in implementing the corridors plan as well. Shannon had done a nice job of going through some of the details related to the general plan goals and how the project meets those. We wanted to pull out a few more here too, related to the housing element. Again, the project does align with various goals and policies in the housing element. Higher density housing, just like I talked about, including affordable housing along transit corridors. Bullet number 2, I think, is very important. The project would provide housing opportunities in an area of the city that otherwise may be unattainable for lower or moderate income households. I think that's a very important one in this area, and it's one of the main housing goals that you look at, when we're looking around the city. Now, another interesting one to think about, we're halfway through the current RENA site that ends in 2029. And the number of permits that have been issued for low and moderate income properties is 455 right now. This project at 199 units would almost be a 50% increase in that amount. And as of the end of April, we'll be halfway through this current cycle, where the expectation is to produce housing in Oceanside. There's a number of sustainability elements that are applicable to this project that are, I think, very important elements for us to consider. Number one, the project's going to be 100% electric. Now, that's a bit of a change from what was presented in the EIR and some of the other project information elements, but it will be 100% electric. The project is designed to maximize the flat roof area on some of those roof sites. We're talking about hillside standards. Part of that's having sloped roofs, but with a project like this, it's necessary for the development of affordable project to have more portions of flat roofs. Well, those allow this project to have a higher percentage of solar available to the project. The site's also within walking distance of a wide range of services, as we talked about, the location near the Oceanside commercial centers and other developments along Oceanside and College. Also, as part of the project, we'd mentioned, and Shannon had it in her report, the 32.63 acres of conservation area. This will be enhanced with planting and establishment of native plants. Will protect habitat, protect vital species. Drought-tolerant landscaping will also be provided throughout the project site, throughout the development. And those are some significant sustainability elements. The map that's shown there shows some of the amenity areas in the neighborhood that are all within easy walking or biking distance to residents that we mentioned before. Part of this information is part of the tax credit application that goes with a project like this, and it's a very viable item to have these kind of services located so close to this site. That leads us into community benefits and improvements that be proposed with the project, and some elements that can be leveraged from the project. Again, the public accessible pedestrian connection to the Sprinter is an incredibly important element for this affordable housing project that ties into being a TOD type development. It's the improvement of a vacant site that has been long ongoing source of challenging issues in the area with homeless encampments and other issues on that property. This will certainly help to improve that for the community. This also ensures long-term preservation, again, of the habitat resources adjacent to the site. Also allows for the extension of the future inland rail trail adjacent to the retaining wall you saw near the NCTD tracks. We've had those discussions with city staff and with NCTD about that area being available for them to use in the future, and it is. And again, probably most importantly, this project allows for over 20 times leveraging of the city's resources available for funding development of affordable housing based on the NOFA funding that was awarded for this project. They'll leverage into this project, and allow for development. And again, we always talk about fees paid for by the project for the impact fees to help maintain existing and new development that's going to happen in Oceanside. This slide shows an interesting item that a lot of people don't know about, and this kind of ties into, again, the tax credit application for this project. Projects need to be located in just the right areas to score well on these tax credit applications. And the red star you see up there is our project site, but the 3 yellow circles are the transit stations around the site. And projects basically within the blue area near transit stations that are near services, like we talked about before, score highly. Again, this project was awarded funding in June of 2024, but with the unit mix and the high resource elements around this project site, this makes it very competitive with tax credits. In fact, it may be one of the highest scoring projects in that realm. But there are limited sites in Oceanside that exist like this, so this is one of them. There may be no others like this that are adjacent to transit that are available for 100% affordable housing. So Shannon went through some of the community outreach efforts, and I'd like to go into a little bit more detail on a couple of those. You know, we did have, our notices were mailed out. There are over 810 total addresses on that notification that goes out to that 1,500-foot radius. On-site signage has gone on, of course. We had our outreach and CEQA meetings as required. In May, we had 2 meetings close together. The CEQA, the scoping meeting, 70 people attended that. Our first neighborhood meeting, 80 people attended that. Very good turnout for those meetings. Here recently in December, we had about 30 people turn out. And, you know, in between those 6 months, we had a lot of conversations with people in between. So I think having 30 people show up, you know, when there was 80 before, it says that, you know, some people got the message, maybe some people didn't want to come in December. But I think our team's done a very robust job in talking to the neighbors. You know, the applicants voluntarily met with 49 community members, had 28 in-person meetings, 7 phone calls, even 31 neighbors that we had contacted to meet who had expressed an interest in the project. We ended up meeting with 13 of those neighbors out of the 31 that we contacted. But there's been ongoing communication and contact with these neighbors, and that's helped generate some of the changes in the project, frankly, and help keep the door open communication with the project applicant. You know, but one of the biggest elements that, you know, we've kind of gleaned through these discussions and a common theme, neighbors, is people have lived here for 30 or 40 years, keep seeing their rents increasing and increasing. And finding affordable housing is more and more difficult. And you hear that on market rate projects all the time, but even more so with trying to find affordable housing projects that are available, you know, that are at a scale to provide, you know, a meaningful number of units. So that was one of the biggest things that that our team and our applicant has heard in the last year talking to folks. Shannon went through some of these elements on this next slide, but comments received as we had these outreach meetings. Again, on-site parking is always has been a common theme throughout that kind of ties into the traffic element with the increased traffic concerns from the site. The habitat preservation, what's going to happen to that area? That's why the site's only 6.3 acres, 10 acres of 10.8 acres of impact, the remainder being, you know, habitat preserved. That's something that we've discussed with the neighbors throughout. Soil conditions, geotech conditions, of course, has been talked about and was one of the common concerns of the neighbors. You know, we've looked at over 30 years of testing and other prior reports on the site, worked closely with the city staff and experts. Our geotech team, you know, has developed reports that are based on that 30 years of knowledge and other projects. And that's why we have a smaller site tied to the east end of the site where that works. Again, fire access, you have some excellent questions, the fire staff about that, the fire department. I think we've covered that. And the project entry at Olive, again, I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail. And Shannon had already talked about a couple of those items. And then again, increased on-site activity. The 73 encampments that we'd found last year out on that site, piles of garbage, other issues, small fires being started and being put out. A lot of staff time and city resources and energy being put into that. This would certainly clean that up and put more eyes on this property and provide that buffer to the neighborhood as well. Shannon had gone through this. I'm not going to really spend any time, but this was the vegetation map showing some more of our constraints. That red line, again, is the outline of our project area. Those gray areas, kind of the road areas to the west, are going to be areas that are re-vegged and redeveloped as part of the project. So access constraints and considerations, again, kind of the elephant in the room. But as Shannon had gone through, Olive has the capacity. It is the existing roadway that connects to this property, and it has always been intended to be the connection point for this property. We did certainly look at other options to the west, to the south. Those simply don't work due to the habitat and steep slopes. Habitat to the west, all the way out to Rancho de Oro, you would get into the Rancho de Oro Preserve. You'd have to cross the tracks, and the creek just doesn't, make sense logistically. And then to the north, that has come up a number of times. So looking at going to the north and trying to connect where that yellow arrow shows to Avenida Oro to the north, it simply doesn't work as well. We initially contacted a bridge and tunnel engineers about that possibility, but for an affordable project, it's just not affordable. A bridge is very expensive, as you know. A tunnel does not work or make sense to go under the creek and under the tracks. A longer bridge to go over the tracks would be very expensive. So it gets into, what's the potential for an at-grade crossing at that location. At-grade crossing, these slides showed that area a little bit more detailed. The aerial, the red star that you see on there is the same spot in all the photos. So if we were to cross at that corner of the site and try to do an at-grade crossing, at first it would probably cross right into the edge of the platform for the existing Sprinter station. It'd be a very challenging area to cross. Again, it'd have to go through the habitat, probably have to have a small bridge there over the creek in the habitat at that point. But more importantly, it'd land in an area that we don't have control over, the city doesn't have control over, the city can't provide eminent domain in that area, and that road would have to travel through where 3 different property owners, share about 40 different parking spaces there. And that drive aisle likely is only 24 feet wide, maybe it's 28, but it wouldn't meet our entry standards for the project. And it wouldn't be really be able to be a dedicated right-of-way. And then most importantly, to be able to do that, we'd have to lower the site down. The pad would have to come way down. That would change the whole geotech and pad grading design. It doesn't really function that way. Move that MSE wall on site elsewhere just doesn't work because it doesn't help stabilize the site. The design of the pad, where it is right now, the 5-acre or the 6-acre pad, really functions to help stabilize the sites, the slope to the south, and then the large wall that's adjacent to that has to come down to grade right there. So bringing that whole site down to the project grade just simply won't work. And so finally, we made some key changes to address outreach concerns. We reduced the density, 199 units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. That's 30% less density than the 282 units, or less units. And at the same time, we increased the parking on site from 346 to 382 spaces. So that's a 10% increase in parking, a 30% decrease in density. And we redesigned courtyards around the site for the entire project to add a second fire truck turnaround to allow for fire access throughout the site for a full fire loop. We reduced the height of the buildings, and then we increased the income qualifications. So, with the median income in San Diego County at almost $120,000, the low to moderate income goes from 80 to 120% of AMI. And so that would serve households earning up to and under $145,000 for this project. Running out of time, so I think Shannon had gone through a lot of detail with these site plans and the site connection and our elevations. And then that's the overall view of the area we were just talking about. And then the entry view from Olive. But with that, I'm going to conclude and try to save a few minutes for rebuttal, but I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you have tonight, right now, or our team can, or we can answer them later.
Commissioner Rosales.
Thanks. Dan, can you go back a few slides to the potential egress or access? I think your slide called it access.
Yeah, to the...
that one,
yeah,
that one there. Yeah, so when I visited the site, I guess I was keenly interested if there was a way to do an at-grade crossing, kind of where you have it there over the creek, only in the event, and controlled by, I guess, the property manager, only to be used in the event of an emergency by the residents or those on Olive. If that was contemplated as opposed to a full all the time access, and what I'm envisioning is an at-grade crossing, control with a gate, only open if there's a true emergency to let people out, essentially. If that was looked at, if it was only looked at as a standard back and forth used all the time thing. And what comes to mind, or what I thought about when I thought this idea was just down the road at the Evergreen, it's something else now, I think Moon Nursery property. They have an at-grade crossing. Granted, it's on their property, not open to the public, but it's to get from one side of their property to the hillside where they keep landscape material. And I remember I've used it when they didn't have it closed down. I used it quite a few times, and it seemed like a really simple engineering standard to be able to, again, only provided for an emergency and only for the residents there. So,
yeah, and that's interesting. The Evergreen Crossing, I mean, obviously that's a very old crossing.
Yeah.
Was approved a long time ago. They have a very old bridge that goes over the creek there as well. To get there, they're grandfathered in somewhat. To come in and do that today, the standards are incredibly different from what they got approved. But that's an interesting question. I think the primary look was, how do we look at a full access entry with secondary access coming out the way we looked at? We didn't really look at it as a secondary access point. However, those same issues I talked about would still exist for a secondary. It would be even more problematic for this project to pay for that, because for an access point that wouldn't be used, hopefully, often as an emergency access point or egress point. Still have to build a small bridge through the habitat or take the habitat out and negotiate with the agencies on that within CTD. And then we're still coming into the private property area exit, and maybe
which could be
working
worked
on that
out.
occasionally might be more negotiable with those owners than constant day-to-day
that could be worked
control.
out with an agreement. But yeah, anyway, that's where I landed when I look at that site. I thought, boy, it'd be nice to have an exit out of there. Again, only used by the residents if there's a true emergency. Otherwise, it's a control location that nobody uses. So I'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
Commissioner Bonner to that? Yeah.
I have several questions, but on the subject of the secondary exit for fire, isn't there like a utility easement that goes along the back end of all those houses? Is that something that, I mean, as far as like, I thought that actually showed on one of the drawings we had, like almost like a little line that went through there.
Yeah, it shows on Google Earth.
Was that where they actually showed the secondary fire access? If it was a certain level of units, like if it was over 199, they'd have to provide that there? Was that the other area for the fire access? Was that where you guys had planned it before when it was a larger amount of units, or no?
I'll let Brian touch.
Okay.
So if I may just touch on the other access
Okay,
first, and then
right.
I can touch on this as well, because
Thanks,
we've looked at both extensively. So crossing to the north, the Avenida del Oro, the main reason that that's not going to work is that with our geotechnical engineers, we looked at seven different pad designs before submitting our planning application. The only one that worked from a geotechnical standpoint was this one with a pad elevation at a particular height to allow for assisting with holding up the hillside. So if you were to do the at-grade crossing, ultimately what would have to happen is you'd have to adjust the retaining wall, lower the pad elevation, and essentially reduce the net pad area, which would allow for a significant reduction in pad area and therefore reduce a significant number of the units. So I think that's really the main crux of going north across there. Even if it was designed in the case of an emergency, the problem is it would have to be designed in a permanent way, and that wouldn't allow for the pad to be designed the way that it is, nor for the geotechnical factor of safety to KOCT. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, and if you could maybe dovetail that thought into her question about the fire road, and maybe there's a crossing somewhere else, so.
Absolutely. So when we first spoke with fire staff, fire safety was the first conversation we wanted to have with them, recognizing that Olive Drive was the only legal access to the site. So they were the first meeting that we had when this site was 400 units and parked a particular way. And we designed everything at every stage based around the requirements that they asked of us. So The big element being the loop all the way around the project and the T-turn on the west side, northwest corner of the project. So in doing so, when the scale of the project and density was at 282 units, they said, if you're going to be over 200 units, and I remember this vividly because it was branded in my head, you're going to need a secondary emergency vehicle access. And I said, oh boy, how are we going to do that? That's going to require all sorts of coordination with NCTD. That's part of the reason why I've been working on this for nearly 4 years now, because we had that coordination, we had those conversations, and they were amenable to it, given the fact that our future residents at this site would have a high propensity to use a sprinter line. And our design of that open space area connecting to the sprinter would open it up not only to our residents, but also the entire neighborhood adjacent to the site. So they were amenable to that idea. But when we presented that in the original design, quite frankly, we've had a lot of community outreach on this project. That was something that was scoffed at in many occasions, which is fine. I recognize there are concerns now that may have shifted based on things that are quite frankly happening where I was born and raised. And I recognize that. At the same time, I do want to say that, sorry, it's really close to home. It was 5 minutes from my high school. So I recognize those concerns. At the same time, when we had to reduce the density of the project, because that was the first concern. That was everyone's biggest concern. And we had those conversations, and we spent that time, and we met in people's living rooms. We went to coffee shops, and we spent countless hours trying to understand everyone's concerns. And their biggest concern was density, their biggest concern was traffic, and their biggest concern was parking. So in the order of priorities, we said, okay, how can we reduce the density? And all the while increase the parking at the same time. We did that by taking countless hours with the design team to re-engineer all of the courtyards. We removed a $10 million podium from Building 1, the West Building. And we thought, okay, how else could we save cost to make the project balance financially? Ultimately, we have to design a site that can work. We have to design a site that can work and receive federal tax credits. And by the way, this site is located in an area that scores maximum points. It scores, from an amenity standpoint, it scores maximum points on every single requirement. And why is that? Because a site like this, proximity to transit, proximity to those services, quite frankly, could never be built as affordable housing if it didn't have some issues to work through. Every other site located on the Sprinter Line has been entitled or built as luxury housing. We view that as an opportunity because in these countless hours that we spent in the community, people have come to me, followed up with me, called me at all hours of the night to say, hey, I just got a $600 rent increase. What am I supposed to do? Is this legal? And we've spent the time and we've explained to them that in certain instances, no, it was not legal. And in certain instances, yes, it was legal. But our understanding of the community's needs are that this is something that's desperately needed. These are families who've lived in Oceanside 2 years. These are families who've lived in Oceanside 30 to 40 years. These are managers of the Albertsons and the Aldi across the street. These are people that we've spent time with, that we know on a first name basis, and they need this housing. So with that being said, and balancing the financial aspects of this project, that emergency vehicle access road was another $1.5 million. So combining the $1.5 million with the $10 million of the podium allowed us to provide more parking, and it allowed us to redesign everything to bring that density down, to provide, phase one was going to be 172 units. That phase one has now been designed in a single phase for the entire development and can be 199 units developed all at one time. Because another thing the neighborhood said was, hey, you're going to be building here for the next 7 years. So we thought, okay, how do we streamline that timeline to make it constructible in one single phase? So clearly there were a lot of elements. I recognize that fire may be at the forefront given everything that's going on, in Southern California, but at the same time, this has been multiple years of taking in every single comment, phone call, letter, email, voicemail. I've listened to every single one. We've analyzed them and prioritized them based on the recurrence of every single comment that came in to make sure that we could address the absolute priority of concern. So I'm sorry that was long-winded, but I wanted to share with you that, yes, we have absolutely gone down every single road to try to analyze every element of this. So.
Okay.
Thank you. That was a great answer.
I think we can go to public, let's go to pub. How many speakers do we have?
Chair Morrissey, we have 22 and plus one group. So the group is 10 minutes at the end and the
Okay.
22. So if you would determine what you would like to do time-wise?
Okay, so we have 22, so if we pick the one group, it's going to speak for 10 minutes. Is that, with that situation, there's still 22 others? Okay, so, first off, I'm thinking we might want to take a break for 10 minutes or whatever. Secondly, I don't know how I don't know how the planning commission feels about reducing the 3-minute down to 2 minutes.
And then 10 at the end.
And I say that only because
we
have read probably lots of feedback already, and I think if we can consolidate, there's just a few of the issues, and I don't think we need to hear it over and over again. So
it's your call.
I'll just put it out there. Do you guys agree for 2 minutes?
I think that would be still respectful of the process and would still get the issues in front of us to deliberate later on, leaving the 10-minute time frame for the final group. I think.
All right.
I think we're covered.
Let's take, what's 10-minute break? All right, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's be back here in 10 minutes, quarter till.
Get everybody to take your seats. We'd like to reconvene. Thank you.
On this tentative map, and the map, and they filed it for the new life was on the planning commission. I was gonna say that today. I haven't done that yet. It's on my face. How funny is that? Here they are.
Mary Sue,
Okay, we're ready to go?
we're ready to go.
Okay.
This meeting come to order.
As you know, you're going to come forward in the order. Your name appears on the screen. State your name clearly for the chamber recording as well as the gallery. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. We have 2 lecterns. So again, please feel free to pre-stage at the second lectern while you await your turn. Quick reminder for group speakers. Group speakers will be heard after individual speakers. And then the request to speak forms were left in the back of the chamber for those interested in that. So, hold on one moment.
Ready?
There
Hey,
we go.
my name is Tom DeMoy, Heather Lane,
Tom's up.
Oceanside, California. Hey, good evening, Planning Commission. Please don't destroy this neighborhood. It's about the neighborhood. We need low-income housing, but if you're going to, any way you look at it, even scaled-down version will be adding over 1,000 car trips a day to Olive Drive, the quiet cul-de-sac. It will be adding over 1,000 more cars to already congested and dangerous College Boulevard with over College Boulevard. This is not talking about Oceanside Boulevard. 55,000 car trips a day, which backs up all the way to Marvin Drive. I drive it all the time. I don't know if each of you drive it, but I drive it up and sometimes it's backed up to Marvin Drive. A safer project would be to exit and enter the apartment traffic to Oceanside Boulevard. And if this developer says otherwise or that's impossible, then they're not doing their job for the neighborhood. If Delmar can get a $3 billion train tunnel and Carlsbad a $500 million sunken train station, then we can get a simple level crossing over the Sprinter tracks west of the self-storage, which is owned by NCTD. It's simple, but they're not trying, they're not looking into it. It would cost them too much money. If they're scaling down from 283 to 199, they can afford to get a simple level crossing over the Sprinter tracks. Yes, we need affordable housing, but not when it destroys other neighborhoods. Please think of the families that live on College Boulevard and Olive Drive and how it would impact safety issues, police, fire, emergency, medical service, bicycle, and pedestrians. You know, it's going to add 500 to 600 more men, children, and women in that project that's going to come in and out of Olive Drive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners and council folks. I know you guys have already heard enough of this, but 4 concerns. Traffic, of course, you already know, you've heard many of us weigh in. I've
could you
been in my
identify
home for
yourself?
40 years. And,
Ma'am, can you identify yourself, please?
oh, sorry, my name is Sue Rita Clark,
Thank you, Sue.
and I'm an Oceanside resident of 44 years, lived in my home almost 40. So I've seen the area go crazy, grow, and everything's busy, but our area specifically off of College is crazy with traffic. So you've already heard our concerns about that. Going from an F value to, you would just make a situation worse. The other big issue is the fire concern. Excuse me. For one area going in, one area just going in and out is not sufficient. From an ROI perspective, you need to rethink that structure. The other concern I have is all these waivers that are being considered. I don't know if anyone has considered this, but in the event of erosion or something going on with that hill, maybe the land shifting, has anybody considered the cost of insurance to individual homeowners in the event of something like that would happen? I don't know if anybody's thought about that. Another concern is 100% electric. I don't know if you've seen your electric bills, but I know many that an average of a 2 to 3 person home, you're looking at $500 to $600 a month just in electric, not counting gas, just electric. So I think you need to really consider, if you're going to do 100% electric, how are these supposedly lower income going to be able to afford it? Very unlikely, because it's very expensive. But anyway, so that's what I'm concerned about, and I don't know how the low income is going to make it with having 100% electric. But you've already heard all of our concerns, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kathleen? Okay, next would be,
Hi, I'm Michelle Dickman. I live on Hope Street, so not directly on Olive, but close enough. So I do support low-income housing, I really do. I understand that it benefits when it's near a transit station, but I guess I'm thinking, okay, aren't these supposed to be families, low-income families? Wouldn't it be better if it was closer to a school where they could walk? I mean, they're still going to have a car to take their kid to school and that kind of thing. So I get being close to a transit station, but it might not fit everybody's situation. And I love the big F because that really, I mean, to say that there's going to be no change from an F, there is going to be a change in traffic, and just because the bottom line is an F, there's a big F there. And then I guess the only other thing I wanted to say was when Olive was, designated as, okay, this can be extended, I just have a feeling that at the time, it wasn't for like a big complex. It was for single-family homes to extend that little community. So I just hope that you guys consider everything and deny it. Thank you.
thank you, Michelle. Liz Reed? She left, okay. Diane? Diane Nargard, thank you. Imagine that.
Diane Nygaard, representing Preserve Calavera. Chair and Commissioners, we've got some positive things to say about this project and a couple of concerns. Of course, we want to build along our smart growth corridors. That's where we're trying to grow. We're trying to be smart about how we grow. So this one is putting that growth right where we want it. It's 100% affordable. As they talked about the numbers earlier, how hard is it to get a project with 199 affordable units? Look what that does for us. 75% of the site is going to be protected open space in perpetuity for generations to come. Think about that. And here's one I really like. Both the city and the developer have recommended to you the environmentally superior alternative. That doesn't happen very often. And this is an all-electric project. What that means for our community is lower greenhouse gas emissions, improved air quality, improved safety. for the community. There's lots of benefits from going all electric. And I think this is about the fourth project in Oceanside to do that. But the two concerns that we have remaining are parking. You've heard a bit about parking. I'm going to talk a bit more on the other side about parking, because too much parking is just as bad as too little, because what it does is it incentivizes more car trips. So we're concerned about the traffic, but yet we allow the parking that is going to support those trips. So right-sizing parking is really a key thing to do. But to address the traffic, this project used a different traffic trip projection model than is typically used. Typically, we use what Sandag calls the not-so-brief guide to trip generation. That would say 6 trips. Oh my gosh, that went very fast.
We'll take that in consideration, Diane. We'll be sure to ask the difference.
Which is fine, but to make up for that, really looking at PDM program, they're going to have resident information about transit, but we really need to monitor over time how many trips are actually generated.
Okay, Diane, I don't want to be unfair to other people.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is Kathy Bronzy.
Hi, I'll identify myself. I'm Kathy Bronzy. Thank you for that. I appreciate your time tonight. All of this legalese, flat maps, diagrams, that does not show the reality of this project. You can't look and go, oh yeah, I live there. I live on Olive Drive, 16 years. I'm intimately full of knowledge of this property. When you mention that, is it once in a blue moon that, this happens? It's not. It's daily. We have had massive car wrecks. We've had a home fire. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we had a murder. That all closes our street all the time. If you have 2 cars parked on the side, you've got the waste management, and OFD, or, even the mailman. Okay, are we going to be hitting mirrors going down this thin street? I don't know. It's a lot. And I want to say thank you. You are governance for our city. The few of you, have to make a decision that will affect thousands of lives for the city of Oceanside. Every day, forever. I'm asking you, please postpone your vote. Just postpone it so we can all speak and talk together there in view of the project and not just in front of it. So thank you for your time. I have hundreds of photos. I'm very happy to share those with you. It's not a good idea. It's not safe. I am weary from the years of this. And in fact, I was told in the public meetings that different things, nothing that was said here today. And I was also in the public forum told I'm taking the brunt of the project. My house is in that first picture rendition. And I'm telling you, I know that this is it's not a good thing. If we can get it with another ingress, thanks.
Thank you, Kathy.
Appreciate it.
Would the speakers come up? Would you also give us your address, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Andrew.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Felix. I've been living in Oceanside for the past 10 months. I'm probably the newest member of the neighborhood. I live directly off of Olive and Bradley, so at the main entrance towards that very busy light. I would say that I've heard people speak, and I don't think it's a quiet cul-de-sac. It's been very hard to get back home. I have a young infant at home. I'm married. I'm 46 years old. I plan to put down roots. I have my wife has 4 sisters, so I'm pretty much locked here. So I take trips around the neighborhood at various times of the day. My work schedule is very flexible, where I can start super early in the morning. I can start later after traffic dies down. But I find that getting around my routes, which I think I'm pretty savvy about, going through different neighborhoods, going down Thunder, going down different ways to get home, to get out of the area. Olive goes all the way to Emerald, and I go to Costco a lot. I go straight down Emerald. There's a huge line coming and going down Olive during the rush hours times. So I just want you, again, I'm sure like everyone's going to mention traffic patterns, but I don't believe it's a quiet neighborhood. I've lived in the gas lamp area when I was a single bachelor years ago until I met my wife, and then she moved me to the suburbs. So I appreciate the time. First time being here at this facility. Again, hope you share hear the community's concerns. My concern is safety, and traffic, and also the area. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the good that you do in our community, and thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Charles Davis. I live at 4135 Crystal Street. I wanted to first address the traffic. Not only leaving, when I came here tonight, I turned left on the arrow, but there was a backup all the way from Olive to Oceanside Boulevard, and that was when there was no train. And so the arrow allowed me to turn just to get in front of the traffic. So that is a tiny little Band-Aid on a much larger problem. So it did improve it just to prevent those cars from blocking me, but they still don't prevent them from turning before my arrow turns. And then coming home from work, I come opposite way from Olive, and it's a pretty scary intersection that way, because what I have to do is I have to wait till all the pylons get past, and then I have to go and make my way on all the left arrow only turn lanes, and then to go straight because it's a straight and left. And it's all of that traffic flowing in. It's just, that's the problem. It's coming from all of the other way. So in order to add more cars, we have 62 homes in our little neighborhood, and to add another 200 is a significant increase, only to exacerbate that traffic problem. And then the density of that area, you're talking about basically just a small area. And it concerns me that not just because it's low income housing, so you can do it legally. It's just question, should we? Is it appropriate for the space and the neighborhood that's in there? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chanel, Crystal Street. Oceanside should have an obligation to support its current residents in upholding a respectable standard of living. Apart from egregious traffic and rising air and noise pollution, Oceanside must consider our safety first and foremost. This project puts hundreds, if not thousands, of Oceanside residents in jeopardy in case of a fire in severe conditions, mainly those that use the College Boulevard and Emerald Drive arteries to evacuate. Most significantly, though, it jeopardizes those that live on the 3 cul-de-sacs adjacent to the proposed project, not to mention the hundreds of proposed residents living at Olive Park. If there was a fire during red flag conditions with extremely fierce winds, these Oceanside residents would be exceptionally vulnerable during a middle-of-the-night brush fire that could start west of the proposed building. During the honestly frustrating community outreach experiences we had, the developer touted that this project will restore safety to our neighborhood by removing all the homeless encampments that are currently living on the proposed site and nearby. This brings absolutely no consolation to us. The homeless are mainly deeper into the open space and thicker brush than the thinned out brush close to us, and they will not be affected by the development. Those living on the proposed site will just relocate west of the conservation easement area. We have personally gone undercover and toured these encampments under the guise of being homeless ourselves. They have many things to start a fire: electricity, appliances. A catastrophic fire is waiting to happen under the right conditions and timing. The developer tried to ease our concern, citing, okay, I don't have enough time for that. Additionally, these embers can travel far distances and will land on our homes. When we have minutes to spare, this doesn't just increase acceptable evacuation pressures, as the fire department said. This is risky and reckless. Olive Park Apartments should never be approved with a one-way in and one-way out street that is a relatively narrow and very short residential street. Hundreds of people storming this intersection is chaotic and catastrophic emergency waiting to happen. No one here can say it can't happen. Instead of focusing on this and with seemingly endless waivers on this residential street, we should be focusing on homelessness.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I need to interject. I have David Gaspy listed as a group speaker, so
Yes.
you're going to be part of the group. Therefore, you cannot speak. I'm so sorry. Yep.
Mr. Blankers.
Mike Blankers, 3868 Carnegie Drive. Wow, are we having a great time or what? We are living the American dream here. So real quick, lots of concerns. Brian and his team have done a great job developing a good project. However, lots of concerns. So what I want to propose is that we maybe pause, take a step back, and maybe form a group of people to take a deeper dive into this particular project. Because it can be a really good project if done really well, and figure out how to solve the traffic issue and also how to connect it to the infrastructure on College and Oceanside Boulevard. So I think it could be a really good project for the community. I don't think anybody here is saying no to this type of housing, but I think the traffic issue and the safety issue is a big concern, and that needs to be addressed. So maybe instead of voting, maybe it's a pause and take a deeper look.
Thank you.
Yep.
Linda Fletcher. Leslie Askew.
Yes, hi. My name is Leslie Askew. I live at 2610 Hope Street. It's right across the street from Olive Apartments, or Olive Drive, I'm sorry. I moved here in 2015 and love the neighborhood and so forth. And I've been going down College around Olive all different times of the day. And the traffic is just horrendous at different times of the day. I'm at work at home. And it's just, anytime I go down there, it's just like, it's heck, excuse me, it's hell. Forgive my profanity, but it's really hell. It's terrible. And to bring in, I'm all for, low income housing, but it's like for there, it's like we already have this humongous problem with traffic and accidents, and I see people almost hitting pedestrians, and it's a horrible situation. And so it's like it's adding gas to a fire. Already we got this humongous situation, and plus the issue of a fire. If there was a fire, it would just, it just would be horrible. It would be a very bad situation. So thank you for all what you all do, and appreciate you listening to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol Lay. I live at 4046 Olive Drive. December of 2017 is when we had the lilac fire. I was supposed to go on a vacation, and that Thursday evening, we could see an amber glow on the far hillside. At 9 p.m., we got a robocall from the sheriff's department, and we were on a voluntary evacuation area. I was supposed to go on a vacation the next day, but I couldn't do it because I'd be living my 101-year-old mother, and I had 2 dogs and 3 cats, and my daughter was there, but I couldn't leave them all like that. The wind changed, and we were saved, and our first responders, took care of us. I should add one thing, though, that was really scary. There was a fire captain that got on the TV and told us the fire was going to go all the way to the coast. And that was the final thing that made me decide not to go. The other thing is the traffic, and we've been stonewalled on this all along. I mailed Tam Tran on December 2nd a letter requesting, how did they get the figures on the traffic, because they're wrong. Anyway, she never answered. I wanted to respond in the final EIR. Instead, I've got my answer on January 17th from Shannon. Those numbers in the EIR are wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zoe Erickson, and I live at 4035 Olive Drive, and I've lived there for over 40 years. About 15 years ago, we had a fire in that field. It was bad enough that CAL FIRE came. Flames were whipping up that ridge up to Worcester, and some houses were evacuated. Now you're talking about putting a big building that will block fire from coming in, but you still got 30 acres of combustible vegetation behind it, and one way in and one way out. We had a fire last year, and they closed down the road. My neighbors had to walk in to get into their homes. What happens when we have a fire or an earthquake and the people have to get out of that building? You know, we're supposed to have the big one soon. And plus, global warming, we're being warned that we're going to have bigger, faster growing, and hotter fires, and it doesn't take much time at all. So what happens if someone breaks down, or looky-loos, I've seen that, come down the street to take a picture and they stall their car? How is anybody going to get out? If I talked to my brother-in-law, who was a fire inspector for the City of Oceanside back in the late 70s, early 80s, most of the 80s. And at that time, it required to have 2 entrances and exits to any development. So what changed? I mean, things are going to get worse with global warming. Why are we going more lax with safety issues? And this is a big deal. Let's keep our families safe. It's a quiet neighborhood. Children play in the streets. We don't need that much traffic coming down that street and not having an emergency exit. But I thank you for your time and your efforts and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I have petition here for Shannon.
Chair, Commissioners, Jimmy Knott, 127 Cherry Lane. I have the opposite trouble. I live next to Lomata Creek down at near the coast. And what the problem is that as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has said, is that due to human-caused imperviousness of the soil, in other words, overbuilding and overpaving of the soil, what happens is that it causes the water to run off really fast, and it floods downstream. This is where it floods my community. Now, the city has spent a lot of money to protect our community. Now, and what's happened is that there's a fee that's put onto homes. You know, what's going on? There was no presentation tonight about what they're going to do about impervious. Now, the other side of the coin, you were talking about traffic. Quote from staff was, it's F, and nothing changes. Well, sorry, I have to disagree. Stress happens, time happens, and it increases detrimental long-term health effects. That takes in that scientific knowledge. Also, the other side of the coin is they're talking about very low income. The very low income for a lot of our seniors is $1,200 a month. That's $20,000 a year. No one is going to be able to afford any of these apartments at $20,000 a year. Thank you.
Mr. Moore? Brian? Thank you.
My name's Brian Serafini. I live at 4129 Bryan Street, which is about a quarter mile from the intersection of College and Olive. I have 30 years fire experience with the City of Oceanside. I also have brought Captain Ken Ruth with me. He's also a 30-year veteran, and Engineer Edward Golden with me, also 30-year veteran of Oceanside Fire. I think everything has been mentioned that can be talked about, the traffic, but the egress and ingress to that area is dangerous. We can't get in, can't get out. We need to look at this closer. I would highly suggest that the members of this committee go walk that area, go look what's there, because what you're going to see is not what's being presented. I'm not going to be real verbose, but go out and look at that area, and I think you will be totally shocked on that area. And also, the traffic cannot be solved in that area. Prior to pandemic, it was reasonable. Now, it's always jammed. Thank you for your consideration, and I have a no vote on this project.
Thank you. Mr. LaCroix? Barbara Collins?
Yes. Good evening. I'm Barbara Collins, and I'm an Oceanside resident. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Sierra Club, and I am here to say the Sierra Club supports the project, and we think that it will be an asset to the community because of the fact that it is smart growth, and we support smart growth. You've heard the features. I'm going to mention that because they are important factors in our consideration, being a transit-oriented development. The tenants are going to be able to walk to the commuter train. It's a mere short walk away. And it's also located within walking distance of multiple shopping centers and services, and that encourages people to walk and bike and use other transportation besides cars. It's close to Oceanside Boulevard, the Smart Growth Corridor. So we do support this. We know we need affordable housing. We have an affordable housing crisis in Oceanside because we haven't built enough affordable housing here for years. And this would go along, it would help, it would provide a lot of affordable housing. And my understanding about how that works is that if you qualify to live in this project, you will not be spending more than 30% of your monthly income for your rent, and that it usually includes utilities. So if you are qualified, you also have to, that is verified on an annual basis. So regardless of if you are qualified and you move into this housing, only 30% of your monthly income will be charged for rent.
Thank you.
Honorable Chair and members of the Planning Commission, my name is Mike Bullock. I live at 1800 Bayberry Drive in Oceanside. Please approve the resolution that you're considering. Oceanside needs more affordable housing, and this is, as has been said many times, 100% affordable. SB 32 is California's climate mandate for year 2030 to support climate stabilization. The plan to achieve SB 32 states that we must reduce driving. I want to say that again because there's been a lot of talk about traffic. We must reduce driving by 2030. And to do this enough, we must price parking. Unbundling the cost of assigned parking from the rent at Olive Park will reduce rents, reduce driving, increase Sprinter ridership, and increase the use of active transportation as alternatives to driving. At apartments, the price of an assigned parking spot should be disclosed along with the rent for the apartments that are available. These disclosures will allow prospective renters to decide if they want to rent an apartment at the location, and if so, how many assigned parking spaces they would want to rent. Because rents are high and available rents are difficult to find, this choice will cause some of the prospective families to decide to own fewer cars. By carpooling, using transit, or using active transportation instead of driving, Renters can choose to rent 0 or more assigned car parking spaces at the offered price. To unbundle parking in a way that rewards not driving, the time of the assigned parking, that the assigned parking is vacant over a month could be charged at a higher rate than the time it's occupied. So thank you very much.
That concludes our individual slips. We're going to move into the group presentation.
Thank you.
Should I start or?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I don't go, I get extra time.
And your address.
Yeah. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Megan Lay. I live on Olive Drive. I'm here representing my neighbors, a lot of the people there in this, yes. There's various viewpoints in my neighborhood, as with, I'm sure, any neighborhood. There's people that absolutely do not want this project, and there's a lot of people that believe just getting alternative access would be a win-win. So that's some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about. If you want to go to the next slide. So the first thing that I kind of want to go and tackle, though, is traffic discrepancies. So the traffic counts recorded on video by Counts Unlimited was counted manually. It turns out it's wrong. I requested the video evidence, and they said that during the PM peak hours, there was 116 vehicle trips. There was actually 77. When we found out the video evidence was sufficient, me and my mother ended up recording our own video evidence. We did 3 peak AM hours and 3 peak PM hours. So if you want to go next slide, sorry. So the neighborhood daily vehicle trips, after we did some calculations, so as you can see, the average for the AM and the PM are right there next to what the ER said. That's very inflated, what they put out. Next slide. Here's some of the methodology used. So as you can see, they use their AM and PM numbers. Well, we went and adjusted those using our own numbers. Next slide. So, now, with the video evidence that we did and with the adjustments that we made, our neighborhood actually has about 400 daily vehicle trips, and Olive only has 109. So why was the video evidence not reviewed? Why was it not verified by the city to ensure that those counts were accurate? Now, why is that important? So the existing traffic is overestimated. It was not independently verified. CEQA guidelines actually say that in order to approve an EIR, it needs to have sufficient analysis and the correct information to inform decision-making. We did not have that. And this has a ripple effect, which I'll get into in a minute. Now, the discrepancies actually lead to impact the noise report as well. And that in turn influences public health. Public Resource Code also says that the EIR approval is prohibited without mitigating significant environmental effects. Because we don't have accurate counts, we're not able to understand whether or not there are things that are unaccounted for and do need to be mitigated. So I think that the developers should be addressing these discrepancies and providing accurate data, and that the EIR needs to be revised and reviewed. The other part is that the project traffic generation rate is underestimated. And the EIR states that they're going to have a generation rate of 4.75 per unit. That number is taken from the ITE, and that study is based on a sample size of 2 studies. So that is very small. The IT even says, caution, small sample size. Now, what's interesting about this is that SANDAG actually has its own guide for generating traffic. They say that it's actually 6 vehicle trips per day per unit. And I have that up there on that screen. So again, another alternative source is the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, which gives us a very high capacity, level of service capacity. Now, this is from the EIR, where it actually says number of studies, 2, caution, small sample size. So why was that not addressed? That this was a very, very small sample size that they're basing this project off of. So again, here is a 100% affordable housing project that was recently approved, I believe last year. It's South River Village in Oceanside. They use SANDAG numbers. Why did this project not use SANDAG numbers? Now, this is an article that I pulled off online. It says that even the ITE says to use local data whenever possible. Okay? Now, the reason why I'm really stressing the traffic aspect of this is because that's going to influence noise. And when we have a doubling of sound energy, that's going to be increasing the noise level by 3 decibels each time. So by the end of this, when we get all of the traffic, it's going to be plus 12 decibels. And then that's going to also impact the people at the end of the street. That the EIR says, hey, they have a community noise level or, decibel level of 53 plus 12, that's 65, which is just at the limit for the exterior noise for community sounds in Oceanside. Now, the reason why that we need the accurate numbers is because we really don't know if it's going to be a little bit under, just right there, or a little bit over. So again, getting into public health, this has been addressed by a couple of different people. If the traffic level increases even 10 decibels, it can actually lead to an impact health effects. There's also a daycare just within the project vicinity, about like 60 feet to 70 feet. That's their license right there. In the EIR, it says that they're going to experience a sound level of 64 decibels, I believe. So that's just 1 decibel under the 65 limit. Again, public health. This is another issue that I don't believe was addressed, was whether or not the hillside, if it's going to lead to erosion when they're doing the drilling of the shear pins. There's also the evacuation safety issues. So currently, College and Olive intersection is rated a D, but then College from Oceanside to Olive is rated an F. Here's a map. So the evacuation, the secondary access that they originally proposed, that's going right into a segment of College that is rated an F. That is one reason why I think a lot of our community scoffed at it, like the developer stated, because it's already severely impacted by traffic, and how can the emergency vehicles access it that way? Now, the reason why the developer is able to go and add the 199 units at the end of my street is because of International Fire Code D16. However, if you look at the next section, D17, it talks about single-family homes. Now, if a single-family neighborhood was built today and it was only 30 homes, that would actually prompt a secondary access. So my neighborhood has 62 homes. So why is it that when we add 199 at the end of my street, it does not prompt a secondary access. Now, this is something that many of my neighbors have gone and proposed to the developer, build over the tracks. That's a map. That's what we'd like to see. And here's some of the parcels and what they can make happen. If the Sprinter is able to go and benefit from this project, surely they can go and accommodate the developer. Now, let's address claims of infeasibility. The developer said that it would take 5 years just to get approval from the California Public Utilities. I actually reached out to them, they said it would take 20 months. In the EIR response, I was told like they couldn't do it because there was barriers to working with other agencies and going over the wetlands. Well, College Boulevard goes over the wetlands and College Boulevard also goes over the railroad tracks. Also, what agencies? How long is the process? Thank you.
Thank you. Does that do for all the public response?
Chair Morrissey, yes, that concludes. I did have one gentleman approach that said he might want to speak at the end.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so.
There we go. If you come forward, state your name, and you'll get 2 minutes.
Mr. Greg Stewart. My address is 3882 Wooster Drive. I've been a resident of Oceanside for 30 years. I want to ask a question to the council. Where are these mandates coming from to build this housing projects that are everywhere in the state of California? Do you guys know?
It's your time to speak, sir.
I'm asking a question. That's why I'm here.
Make your statement, and we'll discuss it later.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to say just one thing. I want to read something. The core idea of self-government is the people should have and say in the terms by which we live our lives. Self-government contains the idea that people should be free from unjust control over their lives. This project, in my opinion, is an unjust project based on what it's going to impact with the people that live there, right? I'm all for affordable housing. I'm all for environmental protection. But this mandate is coming from Sacramento that these things be built. Now, if you guys are going to listen to them rather than people, we're the people that live here. Sacramento doesn't live here, right? There's a better way to do it. That's all I have to say. And I'm with my friend David, my neighbor here, David, that let's put a hold on this. Let's reevaluate this. There's so many problems with this project. And so I'm appealing to you right now. Please put it on hold. Let's do a little bit more study and let's figure it out a little better. This is not good. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on this matter that hasn't? Okay, then. Let's bring it back to the commission. Go ahead. Commissioner Malik.
Shannon, we've heard traffic come up a couple of times, or several times tonight, but I think there were 2 instances of a different methodology that should be, or that was talked about being utilized instead of what was put into the EIR. Could you address what those differences are, or Sergio, please?
Certainly, Vice Chair Malik. So Sandag used to publish their own trip generation guide. It was known as the Not So Brief Trip Generation Guide, but they stopped promoting that. They don't publish it anymore. They don't update it. As a matter of fact, you can't even find it on their website anymore because Sandag has moved away from level of service metrics. Recently, the city made a decision and the city traffic engineer is here to confirm this, to use the ITE manual for trip generation rates. So this project utilized IT manual for trip generation rates for multifamily housing adjacent to transit corridors.
is it the only time that you use ITE standards is for multi-units next to a transportation corridor?
No,
It's a standard to be used.
Jay, can you?
Sorry, let me restate that. I didn't realize it was none. It made it seem like that the ITE standards were just used for this type of a project or development, or are they used across the board as the standard for transportation studies?
no, commencing in 2024, the city has moved away from the Sandag traffic generation to the ITE traffic generation, wholly for every project.
Thank you.
I have a question for Tila, and that is, can you opine regarding an F versus a big fat F? I mean, that was brought up. I mean, what's the difference?
The difference is a level of service of F is that this intersection or the segment is not the best it could be, basically. It would be deemed as failed, but even though the traffic is still moving and it's still usable, it's just not meeting all the general guidelines, for an LOS A, B, C, or D.
So is there something worse than an F in the metrics?
No.
Okay. So we really don't know. Okay. So, all right, is there, Commissioner Rosales? I got you. We'll get you next.
We'll get you.
I was just going to talk.
No, I'll just start the process too. I'll start the process and make some commentary about maybe where we're heading. So, I mean, the traffic issue is what it is. It's an F, and now it could be a big fat F. So I don't know if that's going to get any better, but that does tie into my real concern when I started looking at this material and this issue, and I went out for the visit, and that is the access to the site, which then ties into the possible risk of a need to evacuate the area because of fire or something else. So, so now I'll turn it into a question maybe for you, Sergio. So there was a suggestion that maybe we pause our decision tonight to do some further evaluation, and I don't know what that might be. So I guess that would be part one of my question. I made comments earlier about, the crossing, some kind of crossing to provide the residents a way out in an emergency. Maybe that's something that could be evaluated even further. It sounded like that was contemplated. And that, for me, at least alleviates some of that access evacuation issue and a little bit of the traffic, maybe not. So I'll go back to my question. If we were to say, hey, let's slow down here for a second and take a look at X, do you have any idea, besides what I said, what X evaluation might be that might lend a little bit more clarity to this whole issue tonight, or what can you tell us?
Thanks for your question, Commissioner Rosales. So there's a couple comments I could provide back. One is that I think staff did a thorough investigation of potential alternative accesses to the site. It was outlined and articulated in a staff report, and you heard it here tonight from the applicant and Shannon. So at this point, I think we have a project in front of you that needs a decision rendered. Let me offer a little bit of context about the volume of traffic that we're talking about. So in the most impacted segments that were analyzed for this project, which are Oceanside Boulevard to Olive Drive, College Avenue between Oceanside Boulevard and Olive Drive, and Olive Drive between Olive Drive and Thunder, the additional traffic is less than 1% that's being added to that roadway network. So it's negligible. So there's no changes that are going to occur by reanalyzing this. I'm not sure where Ms. Lay got her traffic engineering degree to be able to provide a formal analysis to us. I don't think that's credible. I think it's anecdotal information that's been provided here tonight. So the recommendation would be for the Planning Commission to ask any questions that they may have. If we have answers for them tonight, we will provide them to you, but this project needs a vote tonight. I would also like to add that the applicant has the ability to provide some rebuttal. I think they have some time left on their presentation, so we need to work that into tonight's discussion, their opportunity to rebut some of the information provided to the commission.
And I just want to make one comment. I did talk to a senior planner within CTD, and when I talked to her about going and making a crossing where they had the star, it was a hard no. And then on the west side, it'd take 2 years, and then it would probably be a hard no. That's just what she told me.
Thank you. Tom, that's all I have for the moment.
Just to go back to a little bit more on the traffic, when the study was done the way it's done with the way you guys have used, it shows that even though it sounds like it's going to be terrible in the neighborhood, it shows that the neighborhood streets are all at level A with the project added in. So yes, when it goes into college, it's still an F, but it's going to be a bigger, fatter F, but it's only a 1% increase. So it's as far as the amount of traffic that this project is pushing onto the streets is not, I hate to say it, not as significant to trigger anything that, I mean, we can't do anything about college and this developer can't do anything about college. It's not, it's something beyond, it's just the way traffic is moving. And that's probably why having a project like this located next to a Sprinter station, and even though, yeah, it's a Sprinter to nowhere and no one's going to use it, eventually they're going to use it. And this project is located close to like shopping, and they can ride their bikes to things. So as far as I'm concerned, this project is like what we were told from the applicant too, when he looks and he studied this thing. This is an ideal location for a 100% affordable project. I haven't seen anything since I've been on the Planning Commission for the 23 years I've been sitting here that's as good as this project has come before us. It's pretty amazing, how good it is. But when I went out to your neighborhood, when I sat there in the fields and looking around, I didn't want it. I was trying to figure out every way I possibly could deny it. It's like, how can we not have something like this come into a neighborhood that's so quiet and so peaceful? But when I see the traffic studies for the neighborhood, it's still an A. So it's not like that traffic on that 199 units is really going to throw you for a loop. So I'm kind of, I'm just throwing this out just as like what I've seen myself. And then as far as the second access for emergency, we heard from our fire department. We heard from different people in the neighborhood and from our applicant how he actually went through like a whole dog and pony show with everybody, right? About what's your 3 most important priorities, which he addressed. And that wasn't the fire access, but now it is. So it's kind of like, how much does this applicant have to go through? I'm kind of thinking, at first I was totally negative when I first came in here. I really was. I was going the other way. And then I heard all the testimonies and all the staff reports and the applicant.
To go along with what you just said, I want to share a story. So I made 4 visits to the site. Yeah. We went out on Sunday at 11 o'clock. And we went down to the platform, and there was a girl there that had a Chipotle shirt on. And it was 11 o'clock. And she was doing the prep from 6:30 to, I guess, 11. She got off her shift. And she was down, going to take the Sprinter. I asked her where she lived. She says, well, I never got that. But she was going to the center to take the bus. But she said, yeah, I'm going to school at UCSD. And this is helping me. And I'm thinking, isn't this what we're doing? Not everybody can afford a car. And it made me think of for you and all of us, I had to say, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes if I lived on Olive, because it's going to be a hardship. It's going to be 18 months. It's going to be a hardship. But it's what our city has mandated we have to do. So all I can say is if the developer can look at, is there anything that they can help the residents of this subdivision? Maybe there's something they can do with the train station and Brian, you want to come up and say something? Actually, Brian, you've got 2 minutes left, so.
I don't want to interrupt any other comments, but I'm happy to address that.
Yeah, but that's just.
I think a rebuttal.
Access better than what you've got.
You're out of quarter. The public hearing is over, so please, no comments from the outside. At this point, Brian, you've got 2 minutes if you want to take it, and then we're going to vote on the matter. Two or what? Yeah, we'll give you 2:02. How's that?
Commissioner Ballmer, I agree with the 1% bigger F that we've been talking about here. I think something that we've done with this project is design it not only for today. We recognize our project is going to be designed for our future residents, but our future residents are entering a neighborhood. And that neighborhood has a problem today, and that's that traffic on College. So one thing we were adamant about with Tila and Tam at the city was, how do we make things better for the next 10, 20, 30 years when I bring my grandchildren to this project? And the way we do that is taking into account College Boulevard widening project, which will be occurring. And when we do that, what is going to be the best way to design College Boulevard? Well, the best way to do that is to create a signal design modification plan for that intersection, which is a condition of our project. So what that requires is we create as-builts for that intersection, which currently the city does not have. That is as-builts below ground and above ground. We analyze the traffic with multiple engineers that we've brought on our team in order to understand, based on current traffic patterns, what is the best thing we can do in designing the College Boulevard widening, which is going to be happening in the next handful of years. So in doing so, we believe that entering that neighborhood, we feel as though it is our absolute obligation to make it as efficient as possible, not only for the current residents, but also for the future residents. And that was a big part of that. And is that going to be an easy thing? Absolutely not. But it will take a lot of detail and a lot of coordination with staff to make sure that we design that intersection for the next few decades, because we're only going to get one opportunity to widen College Boulevard. I keep going, or more questions?
19 more seconds.
Yep.
The only other thing I will say is I recognize we have public comment regarding the traffic and noise. We have taken those items that were shared with us after the public review period. We've also done our own analysis on those items. We have a slide that allows for all that. But the fact of the matter is, Olive Drive has a 2,200 ADT, and it's well below that.
Is there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, bringing it back to the commission. Would anybody like to speak?
We have to make two motions.
Commissioner Ballmer?
I'm just saying there's two motions involved in this project, correct, Sergio? Yes.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Well, no, someone wants to speak.
Before we make a motion, I'd just
see.
like to make a
Yeah, go
comment,
ahead.
if I could.
Sure.
I'm the newest member of the Planning Commission. This is a very, very difficult decision. I mean, it is perfect as it relates to what the city needs in terms of low-income housing. It's a great site for that, but it's horrible for the residents that live there. I understand that, and it's further exacerbated by what's happening on College Boulevard and Oceanside Boulevard as well. Intersections, as I mentioned earlier, is a mess. I'm not sure what can be done to do that, what can be done to correct that. But at the same time, I'm not sure that I could not vote for this project. I just, in good conscience, I say to myself, if I was in that neighborhood, I certainly would not want to see this project. But given the rule and giving my role as a planning commissioner, I have to take into consideration all different aspects of it. And I heard the gentleman say, well, wait a minute, don't do what Sacramento requires you to do. Do what you want to do and do what's in your own mind. I didn't say that, sir. Okay, whatever. That was my paraphrase of it, but that was the implication that I got. But I just want to mentioned this is a very difficult decision. This is a great project, I think. It's what exactly the city needs in terms of low-income housing. It's perfectly located as it relates to the Sprinter, which nobody's going to use, but it's perfectly located for that. So it's a very difficult decision for me.
Well, I might also add, this is not the last say. I mean, you can take this to the city council, so, you know, if you don't like the decision here, you can certainly appeal to the city council. So there's your solace, if you will. So if it does pass.
I could just, if I can dovetail on what.
I want to dovetail too after you dovetail.
Okay.
Dovetail one.
Brian, thank you. I appreciate your comments, and I really appreciate the desire and the obligation that your company feels to further look at how do we resolve something going down the road, because I do think that that's where we make some changes, is looking at that. It's interesting to see that there's no as-built done for a major thoroughfare like that. These decisions are difficult, to go back to what Commissioner Ogden said. Yeah, we are mandated a lot by what happens in Sacramento. What bills get passed, what are the regulations, what are the rules by which we have to play. We don't often like them, but when you look at this project in all its merits, it hits every box. Again, to echo Commissioner Ogden's sentiments, I don't believe any of us up here have nothing but sympathy and empathy for the folks that are in that neighborhood. It's I wouldn't want it in my backyard either. I wouldn't. But because of our obligation to the city, our obligation to the citizens, what we have to do as commissioners, this makes it, yes, it's a challenging decision. But when it meets all those requirements, when we look at the downstream, longer-term effect of this, it is for a greater good. It's an unfortunate situation that we're in based on the impact to that street within that community, but it's something that we're faced with and that we have to move forward with. But I am encouraged by the willingness and the desire to do good in the community from someone outside of the city to say we need to do this to help fix some things going forward. Because until we do that, it will become a bigger and bigger F. And we can't just set ourselves up for failure. Thanks.
Commissioner Anthony.
Well, I echo what my colleagues have spoken already. One of the things that we do have to understand is that what we're voting on, or our decision is on the project. The traffic problem is something else. We consider that, but that is not what we're focused on here. We're focused on the project. The traffic is a byproduct of that. We understand that. But when it comes down to the project itself, like you said, it hits all the boxes. And so the traffic is going to have to be something that we have to deal with in another forum. And that's going to be with our traffic engineer over there. So just wanted to let you know that.
Commissioner Rosales.
Thanks. I won't repeat everything that Commissioner Ogden and Malik said, but I agree completely. The project hits tickles a lot of the things that we're looking for, and that is low-income housing next to the Sprinter. That's exactly what we've been challenged to try to move forward and approve, so it does that. And like you both said, if I'm in the neighborhood, I'm not real pleased that this is coming my way, and I empathize with you. My concern coming in was the concern about some fire event in the area, and how that would impact this project and the neighborhood. I'm not the expertise, so you heard from the fire department that they evaluated it and they feel confident that we're okay and we're good to go. So, we rarely get a perfect project in front of us. It almost always has some element that we're not real thrilled about, and this has a few of them that do the same thing to us. So we're challenged, despite that, to come up with a recommendation that moves the ball forward, and so that's what we have before us tonight. I'll make a motion. There's a couple that we have to do. I'll make a motion, the first one, that we approve the EIR as presented to us. I guess we'll take a vote on that first.
Let's vote on that first. Can I get a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Let the record show Commissioner Anthony second the motion. Please vote.
Let the record show that the motion to certify the EIR passes 6-0.
I can continue if you like.
Thank you.
We're being asked also to approve the development plan. So I'll make a motion to approve the development plan D24-6, tentative parcel plan P24-2, and density bonus DB24-1 by adopting the Planning Commission Resolution 2025 P02 with the findings and conditions therein.
Do I hear a second motion? Please vote.
Records show that the motion passes 6-0.
Excuse me, Morrissey, to clarify, who was the second on that?
Pardon me?
I could not hear for the record. Who was the second on the, thank you.
Mr. Ogden. Let's give him a chance to move out.
What do we got left?
I'm gonna give him. I don't want, Jay, let's give it a second. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a meeting we want to finish up on, so if you could leave the forum. All right.
Okay.
But we still have to finish our meeting. If you want to discuss anything, please take it outside or wait till we're finished. We have some other business we have to attend to. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, what do we got left here, Tom?
Reports.
4 discussion items.
Items,
There's
nothing.
none.
Miscellaneous, nothing.
Okay.
So you probably go to reports.
Okay, I see nothing on discussion items, no miscellaneous actions. Can we go to city planners reports? I have no report. Vice Chair Malik?
No report.
Commissioner Rosales?
Yeah, I do have, can we get, excuse me, can we get everybody to either leave the room or pipe down? Thank you. Item that I wanted to, maybe you've heard about this, Sergio and the rest of the commissioners, but there's been a state bill proposed, Senate Bill 92 was proposed by Representative Blankensphere from Encinitas, supported also by the mayor of San Diego, to start, we heard earlier about the state law and density bonus and all that. There's a project in Pacific Beach that you've heard about that kind of prompted a legislator finally to kind of start thinking about scaling back what we have been challenged to deal with for a while now, and that is having absolutely no discretion. So she's floated SB 92 to do what I think makes a lot of sense and start scaling it back a little bit. It's probably not going to please everybody, but it will require, as I understand it, look it up yourself, to have much more density housing or low-income housing in a project. You can't just get by with an absolute minimum, which will squeeze maybe some of the economics of doing a project, but again, it's step one probably with some other things. So take a look at SB 92. It's just been proposed. I think, again, it's a step in the right direction, hopefully to give some additional discretion back to the cities. And there may be some others that follow it. So anyway, that's all I have.
Good. Thanks for sharing.
Interesting.
I could just add a little bit to Commissioner Rosales' comment in that he cited a density bonus project in PB, and that's a very unique project where the applicant asked for a concession to the FAR limitation. They wanted to increase it to like 2.38, which allowed them to add like 140 rooms. They were supposed to be hotel rooms, but then the applicant stated they were going to be used for affordable housing, some form of affordable housing. And HED said, no, that's a commercial component. That's not a housing unit. And HED also was not very they weren't very convincing in their letter to the city of San Diego about can they deny that concession. They said, well, you could, but you got to make the findings, or you could just approve it. So it's a very, very unique situation in PB. And maybe the positive thing that's come out of it is this legislation that the legislature is going to consider later on this year. So there's a very unique project. We have that HCD letter. I could forward it to the Planning Commission as a reference to give you an idea. Yeah.
Commissioner Baum,
Nothing to report.
okay. Let's see, Commissioner Anthony.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Ogden.
I do have just one quick comment. Receiving this letter that we received this evening dated January 27th from California Housing Defense Fund. Threatening, I would say. And it's like, okay, this is what you do, and if you don't, we're going to sue you. It's bullshit, but I just want to make that comment. So sorry about that, but I hate being threatened. It's almost like, okay, bring it on.
Yeah. Yeah, I would concur.
Yeah, we know you had nothing to do with it. It's not the first time we received a letter to remind us what our obligation is. And it does, it's freaking annoying is what it is. So
Kind of insulting too. It's not only that,
it's kind of along the lines of being a bully.
Hey, you dummies, vote this way because otherwise we're going to sue you.
What do you have for us?
Try to make it quick.
No, take your
It's a long
time.
evening, and I really appreciate everyone's participation tonight and your patience. It's a complex project and a lot of emotions, and so I appreciate everyone just listening to everything and keeping an open mind. Real quick, we already heard a little bit of it tonight, but on February 10th, we're going to ask the Planning Commission to consider certification of EIR and approval of a development plan and 2 conditional use permits for the project known as the Eddie Jones Warehouse Project. It's 4 buildings, a little over 400,000 square feet, and they've tremendously reduced the number of truck bays associated in that project. So that will be coming forward. The EIR wasn't made available, the final EIR wasn't made available to the Planning Commission, I think a little over a week ago. So hopefully in your spare time you can have, or if you're, can't have insomnia, maybe you could read some of the EIR there. And currently for the February 24th meeting, we don't have any items scheduled, nor do we currently for the March 10th or the March 24th. So I think March 10th is going to have a couple items that's just not confirmed yet. So we will report back at the next meeting on what's coming forward on the Planning Commission's agendas. I'm just recapping a little bit about the City Council. Speaking of spirited meetings, I think a number of you were there. At the meeting on January 22nd, the City Council granted the appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of a regular coastal permit and a variance for an unpermitted balcony at 1842 South Pacific Street. So that resolution for approval will appear on the next City Council agenda. And then they also considered an appeal of a mixed-use project at 503 Vista Bella. After much public testimony and spirited conversation, the City Council decided to continue that project for 90 days to the meeting of April 23rd to give staff the opportunity to perform an economic analysis of the requested concessions. Finally, on February 5th, we have a small project that didn't come to this body, but it's for 2 small rooftop decks at 151 South Myers. And then on February 19th, the staff is going to be bringing forward recommendations to the council for direction on the storefront cannabis program they directed us to implement back in 2023. So that's it for the city planner comments. Thanks.
Hey, one quick thing, if I could add. Shannon, great job. Thank you very much. That was the heart of that whole thing. You did a very good job of analyzing that. Thank you very much.
Good job. Now,
And
okay.
Sergio, thank you too, but you're the master.
You did good.
Recording stopped.